Good afternoon to you. It's just after 12:30 here, Tuesday. I'm Jane Monreal. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+. And happening right now is a press conference in Minnesota for law enforcement on ICE operations. That is right across the Twin Cities metro area. Let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News.
Law enforcement with many different agents in ICE, HSI, and others. And those individuals who I've spoken to make several things clear to me. This is not right. They see it occurring and absolutely believe it needs to stop immediately. And they want to make it quick that it's not their groups. They're aware that there are groups that seem to be have less supervision that they believe are involved in this. But the vast majority of these groups are doing focused, legitimate immigration work that they're tasked to do, and it is well within the bounds of being legal.
Chief,
so,
Alex Capriello of News Nation. To that point, you allege that there seems to be a small contingency of federal agents that are operating under this racial profiling strategy. What evidence or proof do you have that this is not something that's coming from the top down, from the highest ranks of our federal government?
The evidence I have, the question is what evidence do I have that this is not coming from orders from the top, from Washington, D.C. to act this way? One, I just fundamentally don't believe that. Our federal government and partners that we've worked with, that I've worked with for 30 years, have an exemplary record of performing exceptional law enforcement services. When we had the horrific events this summer and partnered with some of the finest men and women that I've ever had the benefit to be around to help us investigate a very complex political assassination. I've seen the best of what the federal federal government has. This is not it with a small group. With that said what we see every day, the context that we have are agents that are working really hard in a really tough situation to do it right. I just fundamentally don't believe that it's coming from the top. In fact, I believe that I don't think the leaders in Washington, D.C. fully understand what some of their groups are doing here on the street and how much damage that they're causing, and that's why we are here to kind of bring this to light. What evidence is the question that you asked? What actual evidence do I have? None other than agents that I've talked to and leadership in certain groups of teams have made it clear that this is unacceptable behavior, that they've never been told this is okay. In fact, that they know it's not okay. They're held accountable to a higher standard, which makes me believe that what I fundamentally believe that this is a small group of individuals performing this. And I will be honest, this really to me started 2 weeks ago, which feels like was the last surge of Border Patrol when they arrived, is when we started seeing this really change of behavior where it's street level jump outs or traffic stops, which the federal government is not allowed to do traffic stops and tell people that they're stopping them for speeding, which is what we're seeing. That's not allowed. They are not able to do that. They need to have reasonable suspicion that somebody is here illegally for them to stop them either on the street or the other stop them in a vehicle. So.
What is a small group? Are you talking about dozens of agents, a handful of agents?
The question is, what is a small group? I absolutely have no idea. This is far outside of my purview as a local police chief, but what I do know is it's really impacting my community, what my community does and how they feel, and it's impacting our brand as police officers, our brand of how hard we work to build trust, to police in a way that builds legitimacy in what we do. And when people armed with rifles that have just police across their vest get out and act a certain way, of course, our public thinks that's us. Many agencies that you've probably seen, and many of them are behind me, have had to put out pamphlets showing what a Brooklyn Park police officer looks like and what an ICE agent looks like to make sure that we tell community they are different. Those are not Brooklyn Park officers or St. Paul officers or Brooklyn Center officers. Those are ICE agents. To answer your question specifically, I have no idea what groups or who it is or how many, but I know it is a small portion of the whole.
Chief Burley, one more follow-up. What message do you think it sends to the public and you, a police chief? You've had decades of law enforcement experience. What message does it send to the public when you are having a hard time getting answers from the Department of Homeland Security?
Yeah, the question is what message does it send to the community if I, as a police chief, have a hard time getting answers? How does that leave the community for them to get answers? I think it makes them feel lost. It makes them feel concerned. It makes them feel fearful, and that's why we're here today.
Chief James.
For the KSTP, really for Chief Burley or any of the law enforcement leaders, they're getting these complaints. I'm wondering, is there anything that your agencies are you investigating these complaints that U.S. citizens or anybody else is bringing up with these concerns with officers? Are you investigating them, and you have the jurisdiction to investigate these complaints?
So the jurisdiction investigating complaints, so we're doing jurisdiction investigating complaints.
Yeah, the question is about jurisdiction, and when we get those complaints, what do we do with those? Again, really difficult because we have, the federal government, and we also have on the state side of it as well. Obviously, I know that any law enforcement department in Minnesota is going to take any complaint that they get, but what sort of teeth do they have? What sort of enforcement do they have under the law? That is different. Again, it's the big issue here is it seems that people are just, the rhetoric is just passing like this. Everybody's passing and then they're saying things and they're not getting it in their head. It's clear that those avenues that can be utilized for the United States citizens that feel that something is happening, we've seen those lawsuits, and those lawsuits are appropriate, and the courtroom where those are discussed, that's appropriate as well. But as far as like the mechanism for us to investigate those on a state side, it's just not there.
We'll take a couple more questions.
Derek James, WCCO and CBS News Minnesota. It seems to me there's a patchwork of federal agents from different agencies all on the ground. Have there been any notices of inconsistencies based on different training, different tactics used between the those agencies?
We know that we talked with leadership within our federal authorities, and there has been question about the amount of training. Is the training consistent with what they were getting, say, 6 years ago? Are they going through Flexi? And then what is the vetting process like? Those have been conversations, again, at some of the highest levels that we've had. Again, they don't share that stuff with us, but I get the sense that there is some mutual feelings and that the training, some of them are not well trained. And again, I want to be careful because we do know that there's some that has impeccable training and are good at their jobs. But we are seeing an influx here, you know, to the question earlier, you know, what's a small number? Minnesota, we're seeing this in different areas. It's not just the metro area. We're hearing about it in other areas. It's the impact. This is one of those things where you don't worry about the numbers. We need to talk about the impact on what that 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth incident is causing to all Minnesotans.
Chief, you mentioned that you've been, unable to really talk to people in leadership about what's going on here. If you were able to get somebody on the phone to discuss, what you're seeing on the streets, what's your message?
Well, we have spoken to some leadership both locally with their supervisors, but also there's been a series, and just as recently as this morning, and I think there's actually another one scheduled for this afternoon, where higher up elected officials are meeting with law enforcement leaders from all over the state. As you can imagine, some jurisdictions are a lot smaller than others, but we're pulling that together to get that combined message. What we're trying to get out there is that this isn't just a one-off. This isn't something that's being experienced in the way that maybe it's being described all the time on the news. That these are very specific complaints that are happening literally everywhere in our state. And so we're trying to gather that as a combined voice, and we're really trying to make it clear. We understand that there is a feeling right now that if you stand up and say something, there might be a retaliation against you. None of us want that. None of us are suggesting that there isn't a legitimate lawful authority to operate here as federal agents. But we are trying to come together to say, can we please find a pathway forward? Can we find a way to make sure that we can do these things without scaring the hell out of our community members and freaking everyone out? People are afraid right now, and I get it. We watch the news and we see very, very angry groups of people out protesting. But the people that we're dealing with as police chiefs are the people that are scared to death, that are afraid to go outside, not because their status is in question, but because they're hearing and they're seeing that they know people that are getting stopped by the way that they looked, and they don't want to take that risk.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Right now, 12:42, you're watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. Law enforcement in Minnesota, right out of St. Paul, conducting a live press conference to talk about where they stand, how to address people's concerns there over ICE operations that we've been seeing in national headlines here for the last couple of weeks. We're going to take a quick break on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 12:44. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We have been following this case of an au pair involved in the murder trial for a Virginia man. His name is Brendan Banfield. He is accused of stabbing his wife to death in order to be with his au pair. They are taking testimony right now from a forensic analyst. Let's go ahead and listen in here. It looks like lawyers are getting together for a possible sidebar, but let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News. And that is the forensic analyst that is on the stand right now. She's been there for most of the day, from what we understand. This trial now in its second week.
Thank you so much.
Let's continue on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Judge, would it be appropriate to go now, or
how long is
your have a break for the?
How long is your cross-examination?
I anticipate probably being at least as much, if not.
Okay, all right. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our lunch break now. So we'll come back then at 1:45 to give you an hour, okay? So again, do not discuss the case and don't do any outside research, okay? We'll see you at 1:45.
Well, that happens every once in a while. We go to a live feed and they end up going to a little bit of a recess. As you heard, out of Virginia. We'll go back to that when they resume later this afternoon. We'll shift gears and back to related to ICE operations in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This time, it is healthcare workers working in the Twin Cities. They have concerns as well. They are having a press conference right now. We'll go ahead and dip into this on Live Impact News.
Local communities that individual providers, clinic groups, and hospitals are working to increase home health visits, mobile visits, and telehealth care, while also solidifying and strengthening on-site protocols to address our patients' needs in a safe manner. Our community is rising to meet the needs of our neighbors. As OBGYNs caring for those in our community, we affirm our commitment to the compassionate care of all of our patients without regard to their immigration status, and oppose activity that restricts or obstructs that care. I will now turn it over to Dr. Dwivedi from the Minnesota Academy of Family Physicians.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Roli Dwivedi, a family physician and the immediate past president of the Minnesota Academy of Family Physicians. I'm here today on behalf of the MAFP that represent more than 3,100 family physicians, residents, and medical students across the state of Minnesota. We provide care to all Minnesotans. Today, alongside with my colleagues from other specialties, we reaffirm our shared commitment to safe, equitable access to care for every Minnesotan and raise our concerns about current immigration enforcement impeding that access and spreading fear across Minnesota. No patient should ever hesitate to seek care because they worry about their safety or the consequences of walking into a healthcare facility. I have been a practicing physician for more than 19 years here in Minnesota, and I have never seen this level of chaos and fear in the healthcare for patients and for our healthcare teams. It is tragic and is unthinkable. It is more challenging than the acute part of the pandemic in many ways. I want to share the reality of what physicians, nurses, other specialists, therapists, pharmacists, students, and our state future workforce across Minnesota are seeing right now. These are not just missed opportunities or appointments. These are life and death crises. There is trauma and moral injury. Last week, a patient with kidney cancer vanished from his scheduled visit. When his clinician called, they found he had been detained and moved to Texas without his medications. While legal intervention eventually got his medication to him, we still don't know if he is actually taking his medications. No one deserves to die or suffer because of how they look or how they speak or where they were born. In another case, a patient with insulin-dependent diabetes stopped coming to the clinic. We discovered they were not just not out of medicine, but they were out of food. They were rationing both the insulin and their meals without knowing how to adjust insulin. We are seeing levels of food insecurity that are simply horrific. A pregnant mother missed her checkup and stopped answering her phone. A nurse went to her home and found her 8 centimeter dilated. Laboring alone and terrified to seek help, she delivered just 2 hours after the nurse finally convinced her it was safe to go to the hospital. The cycle of fear is claiming lives. Recently, a patient discharged from the hospital missed their follow-up because they were too afraid to leave the home. What should have been a routine wound care appointment turned into a life-threatening case of sepsis. A simple office visit would have solved them from returning to the ICU, and we know our ICUs are already filled. The trauma we are witnessing is horrific. In our clinic parking lot, a mother and a son were forcefully separated from while trying to fill a prescription for a seizure medication. The trauma triggered a medical crisis. The son was rushed to the hospital in the midst of a seizure, whilst his mother was sent to a detention center in Texas. In Wilmer, Minnesota, fear is paralyzing the community. Families with legal status are sleeping in trucks to avoid home raids, choosing the cold and illness over the risk of separation. One teenager nearly collapsed from starvation, surviving on a single egg in 3 days after her entire family was detained. Our places of healing are under siege. I was notified that a clinic was surrounded by masked, armed individuals and orange buses with blacked out windows. When a clinic like this is treated like a tactical zone, who would feel safe enough to go to the healthcare facilities? Dental appointments have dropped in half. Several clinics have reported no-show and cancellation as high as 60%. We know from the pandemic the consequences of postponed medical and dental care. In primary care, we see firsthand that when people delay or avoid care, the harm compounds. Chronic conditions worsen, injuries go untreated, preventable complications grow more serious. Our patients and communities are scared. I have dozens of other stories to share, but the bottom line is this making America healthy again? I stand here with others representing healthcare providers across Minnesota, pleading on behalf of our patients and communities and our staff. Healthcare is a fundamental human right. Our communities deserve to be safe and healthy, but right now we are failing to meet the promise. It's time we immediately change our course. Thank you. And with that, I will invite Senator Mann.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm Senator Elise Mann, Senate District 50, and I am a family medicine and ER physician. You've heard stories today about ICE agents inside of our hospitals, ICE agents walking into patient rooms without warrants, ICE agents setting up shop outside the emergency room doors, ICE agents waiting at clinics to separate families as they walk in to get their medications refilled. At no time, the only other time in history I can remember having a group of physicians standing in front of you was during COVID. Because you have any idea how hard it is to get doctors from across the state and across all specialties to join together. This is a moment of crisis in this state because of ICE and their presence in our healthcare settings. You have a group of people in front of you today who have sworn to take an oath, have taken an oath that to do what's best for and to take care of our patients. The presence of ICE officers in our hospitals is preventing doctors from doing that. Again, you've heard the firsthand stories about how ICE is acting illegally and unconstitutionally. They are acting unlawfully and in turn are jeopardizing patient care and the health of our patients. This is not making our city safer. It is about harming entire communities, making certain that certain communities feel afraid to go out, to get groceries, to go to school, to go to work, and now are afraid to get medical care. We are here today because we want the rest of the country to know about what is happening inside Minnesota hospitals and inside of our clinics, because it will happen in your state also if it hasn't already. And lastly, we want the world to know that not only will the people of Minnesota stand in solidarity with each other and protect one another, but Minnesota doctors will stand in solidarity and we will protect our patients. With that, we are happy to take any questions.
Do you have any legal recourse to try to, not allow ICE into those so-called public spaces? Or is there any legislation you're planning in February to address it?
Well, and I don't know if you have anything to add, Matt. ICE is allowed into public spaces, right? It is the private spaces that we have a problem with. They should not be allowed inside patient rooms when they're taking their baths or when they are getting examinations. We have reports of ICE agents bringing in their patients with injuries that are completely inconsistent with the stories that they are telling, and they are not allowing the patient to tell their side of the story of what happened. This is what the issue is. The problem is that we can pass 110 laws, but ICE is already acting above the law. They are already acting unlawfully and against the Constitution. We have Fourth Amendment rights that protects these private spaces, and they don't care. So we can come up with 110 different laws. Certainly, we have no guarantee that they will follow any of them.
I think there still may be a role to introduce legislation this coming session, which was never required previously because there was always a Minnesota understanding of how law enforcement acts in healthcare settings. But now that we see it violated repeatedly, we should at least codify what best practices are for that interaction.
Does anyone have an interpretation on HIPAA? I mean, that's a federal law, but it's for patient privacy. Is anyone being able to invoke that to get a federal agent out of the room?
We have reports that we have invoked everything that we have at our hands to get ICE agents out of the rooms, including calling the police, calling administration, calling hospital security, and they have refused to leave.
Has this been happening like all over the state, like in rural areas as well? I know there's been reports in the metro, but what does this kind of look like statewide?
Yeah, this is happening across the state. I mean, you can pick a city, it's likely represented here, and they can tell you stories about what's happening in their hospitals.
I think I'm hearing, I heard a few examples of close calls, but are we talking about actual cases of patient harm, malnutrition, that patient suffering?
Thank you so much for the question. I think if the preventive care is not given in a timely manner, it can become into a complication. For example, that baby that delivered 2 hours after the patient was brought to the clinic, what if that baby delivered in the house and there was like no care in the house and baby was asphyxiated and died? So these were the things that we have to be thinking about. I know that there's a patient that I heard that they were just so afraid and their colon perforated. And rather than being into like just the thing that could have been just treated with a course of antibiotic that led to a 1 month of hospitalization, but that could have been life-threatening as well.
Yeah, so it's not close calls, it's actual harm, right? We have perforated colons, we have burst appendixes, we have the patient who became septic and needed ICU care. These are very much real stories and real harm that is coming to our patients.
What would you say, I know obviously the focus should be on the patients, but for all of you, what's morale like? You went through COVID, you a lot of
All right, we're going to get a check of your weather coming up in 2 minutes on Live Impact News on WCNC+. Birdsall here in the Live Impact studio. We need to check out your weather as we come up on 1 o'clock on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All eyes to the weekend, Becca.
Yeah, this is definitely a talker. I've been getting a lot of text messages about this and a lot of personal emails. What is going to be happening this weekend? I will say, if you check your Apple weather app, it shows that it is going to be snowing the entire weekend with the potential of dropping 10 inches. That is not what we have in the forecast, but we are looking at a significant winter weather storm that is headed our way as we go into your Saturday and Sunday. So here is the latest. Do want to get to that right now as we are weather impact alert as we anticipate this system to head our way as we come towards this weekend. This is going to be mainly later in the day on Saturday when we could see a few flurries, and then that potential for that changeover to freezing rain as we go into your Sunday. This is going to be a messy system. This is not black and white, and it's very dependent on where this low pressure system ends up. That could bring us more cold rain, that could bring us a mix, or that could just bring us snow. So there's so many questions and limited answers at this point, but as we get closer to the date, we will know the specifics. Right now, we do know that this is going to be an impactful system. Prepare to stay home and anticipate some outages as well. Surface map, well, the system is going to be spawning over in Texas, where they are going to have a chance for some winter weather as well as it continues to push across the east. The southeast, all the way down over towards portions of Georgia, also will get a chance on freezing rain and snow. So here comes a Saturday morning for us. And this is just one model run, and we're still a little bit too far out for exact specifics, but giving you an idea of what will be unfolding. Forgot a couple of flurries in and around the greater Charlotte area, really picking up as we go later in on the day towards those evening hours. You can see this showing more widespread snow, potentially heavy snow as we go later in on the day on Saturday. And then early Sunday morning, as that low pressure system continues to track alongside that cold front, it's potentially where we could get some warmer air aloft that will allow for the potential of freezing rain on top of the snow that we're expected to get for Saturday. So this is Sunday morning, right around 10 o'clock. Now, where exactly this freezing rain line ends up across the mountains, foothills, into the Charlotte area, that is what we'll have to fine tune. But this looks like it's going to be a long duration event between Saturday and Sunday. That means big, even major impacts, lots of accumulation expected, and it even continues into Monday morning as well. So there could be a good chance that all said and done, we pick up a lot of snow, we pick up a lot of ice, or maybe it's just a cold rain, but there's going to be a lot of moisture to work with. And I think we'll see those impacts linger into your Monday as well. So there's that low pressure system that we're going to be talking about, whether it trends more north, more south, or kind of just stays in that center there. It's going to have a huge dependency on what sort of precipitation that we see. So if it trends a little bit more north, that means more of a cold rain. The second scenario, a little bit more ice. And then if it sinks a little bit further south, that third scenario would be to see a little bit more snow. What we are confident on is we are going to be seeing some sort of winter weather this weekend. We were at about a 50 to 70% chance. It's just not showing yet in these colors. So what we're watching for in terms of ice accumulation, this is actually a story that I will be breaking out on later on today, this afternoon. So ice accumulation, you would think maybe a 1/10, quarter, or half an inch. That doesn't really seem like much, but a 1/4 inch or more, actually, that is ice storm warning criteria. And that's when you'll want to avoid unnecessary travel. We've got some light icing or a glaze on trees. You can also see some scattered power outages as well. But once you get up to around a 1/2 inch or more, that's in the major category. You've got a coating of ice, impassable travel, you've got broken tree limbs just due to the weight of ice, and numerous power outages. And that's a potential as we go into this weekend, not just for us, but kind of across the southeast as well. And again, those impacts could linger into your Monday as well. Futurecast snowfall has been kind of off the charts lately. This is one outlandish model run, giving you an idea of the trends that are going up. So we are not expecting these amounts, we are seeing those trends going up for the potential of that winter weather. That is why we are weather impact alert. Let's talk about today. Sunny, certainly chilly out there. Highs will be in the middle to upper 40s, but should be a great day if you have any outdoor activities planned. We've got not one cloud in the sky, so wall-to-wall sunshine out there that extends from the mountains into the metro. We'll see those temperatures continue to rise up over the next couple of days. I'd say Thursday probably the pick of the week. Highs will be just shy of 60 degrees. It's going to be fantastic conditions. If you actually have any errands that you might need to run, James and I were talking about this earlier, our producer, of things we need to get to prepare. I don't have an ice scraper, which is kind of crazy, but I'm thinking that I might want to get that, some extra snacks.
I have to find mine, yeah.
Yes. So Thursday, great day to go out to the grocery store in this Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day. After that, that's kind of when things start to fall downhill. Friday, anticipating a couple light showers, just kind of a nuisance. And then here comes those big impacts between Saturday and Sunday. I can tell you, WCNC will be fully staffed to get you through this. Anything that comes your way, we will be live in many different locations giving you updates about this. But again, Monday, my goodness, high of 35 degrees, morning temperatures down into the 20s. So not only are we anticipating winter weather, but it's also going to be downright cold. Those wind chills are likely going to be in the single digits, teens for a lot of us. So if you haven't already, prepare your house, winterize your home, and get those big coats out as we anticipate this weekend.
I've got the coat, the earmuffs, the gloves, the hand warmers,
Yes.
all of the things.
I've got all my ski gear in the closet.
There you go.
That I don't normally take out, but
You're
I
going to
feel
look
like
like
this
a
might be
little
good.
snow bunny wear this
Yes.
weekend. All right, Becca Birdsall, thank you for that update. We're sure to keep in touch towards the end of the week, certainly, as we get ready. Bitter cold. Doesn't sound like it's going to be fun. I don't know. Maybe if you're home and get some snowfall. We'll see as we get closer to the weekend. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We are expecting the president to speak on his 1-year mark at the White House briefing. That is coming up any minute as we keep an eye on the White House. We'll take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 1:09 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, I'm Jane Monreal. We are awaiting the president to join the White House briefing today. It is scheduled for 1 o'clock when we see Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She will be joined by the president. In the meantime, he is expected to make remarks marking his 1-year anniversary since his inauguration. So that is running at least 10 minutes late here, scheduled for 1 o'clock. That will be happening any minute, and we'll take you back out to the White House as soon as we see that up. Speaker Mike Johnson in Europe earlier today, speaking at Parliament, and we'll go ahead and re-rack this up for you while we wait for the president. His remarks for you now from earlier today on Live Impact News on WCNC.
Thank you sincerely. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Lord Speaker, Ambassador Stevens, members of the House of Commons, members of the House of Lords, and so many esteemed guests. It is a great honor for us to be here, a tremendous pleasure to be with you all. Speaker Hoyle, thank you for those kind words, your gracious invitation to be here today, my friend. It means so much to us. It's a real detriment to follow Speaker Hoyle. I don't like to do this. At the G7 speakers meetings, I just want you to know when he gets wound up and going, it's just like Churchill, and it goes on and on and on. And I try to speak before him at all times. I don't want to follow, but really, really grateful to be here. He has become a dear friend, and all of you, we've met so many great friends. My wife Kelly and I are truly touched by how warmly we've been received here, and having met so many of you in the past couple of days, we walked away with this sense that we do have close and dear friends here across the pond, and we have this shared heritage, and we treasure that. It is a profound honor to be speaking in Parliament today, to be the first U.S. Speaker of the House ever given this honor, and I take it very seriously. As proud Americans, it is as though we have returned to the spiritual birthplace of our own nation, and the history here, the weight of it is palpable, as you know. It gives you a certain sense of just being serious. I was going to roll on with a bunch of jokes this morning, but it doesn't feel right to be in this place at this time. We have returned at a pivotal moment, obviously, in the great histories of our countries, to mark this anniversary that we have in our nation and to celebrate what we've achieved together in the past, and importantly, to face and overcome together the challenges of our present day. And I want to tell you, my friends, we will do that together. That's what I bring you that message. When I met with Prime Minister Starmer at Downing Street yesterday, I told him that I thought his national address a few hours earlier was well done. He noted, of course, that the UK and the US are close allies and that our strong, constructive partnership all these years has been built on mutual respect and focused on results. I thought that was exactly the right message and the right tone. And because of that, we've always been able to work through our differences calmly as friends, and we will continue to do that. I want to assure you this morning that that is still the case. I spoke to President Trump at length yesterday, and I told him that I really felt that my mission here, even though we planned this back in the fall, we didn't know how the events would develop over the last few days. But I told the President that I felt that my mission here today was to encourage our friends and help to calm the waters, so to speak, and I hope to do so. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, let us look to agreement, continue our dialogue, and find a resolution, just as we always have in the past. And in that process, I am confident that we can and will maintain and strengthen our special relationship between these two nations, send a message of unity and resolve to our allies around the world, and remind our adversaries and the terrorists and tyrants everywhere that our nations that are dedicated to freedom and justice and order and human dignity are stronger and more resolved now than ever before. I think it's a very important message. Of course, we do gather here at a unique and consequential moment in American history. This year, as noted, is the time we mark our 250th anniversary of our independence. Now, I know this is not a long span of time in the scale of human history. I get that. We were touring the 1,000-year-old Windsor Palace a day or so ago, and that really set it into reality for us. At the dinner we had here last night, that Speaker Hoyle and Lady Catherine graciously hosted for us, it was not lost on me that there at my table were items of silverware older than my country. Puts it in perspective. But this year in particular, we remember just how far we really have come, how our nations have evolved and grown and strengthened in so many ways together. America's founders embarked on what was a radical experiment, of course, a government of, by, and for the people, ruled by laws and based on the self-evident truth that all men are created equal and free. That experiment transformed 13 disparate, distant colonies from the world's largest empire into what became the world's freest and most successful self-government in human history. For Americans, this year is not simply a celebration, it is an invitation to come together and to ask what we are doing in our own time to preserve and fortify that experiment and all of the blessings of liberty and opportunity and security that we enjoy today, and frankly, sometimes too often take for granted. We have a stewardship obligation to maintain these blessings, and all of us in the West, all of us together, are facing real challenges today that we must acknowledge and confront, and we do that best together. Across the pond, Congress and the Trump administration have been working very hard. We're trying to usher in a new golden age for our country, as we say. We're marshaling every resource we have to make America safer and stronger and more prosperous than ever before. And I'm very bullish on the prospects of doing that. We must do this because we know those hostile to the West and to our shared values are engaging in increasingly sophisticated forms of subversion and espionage. We see China, Russia, and Iran grow more aggressive and emboldened as they intensify their efforts to exert economic, political, and military influence around the world. We see a callous disregard for basic human rights, new provocations, and even the theft of intellectual property on a scale like we have never seen before. Clearly, President Trump is taking seriously the modern and dynamic threats that China and Russia pose to our global security, especially in focus the last few days as it relates to the Arctic. And while we can have thoughtful debate among our friends about how best to counter these threats, we all certainly agree they must be countered. We ignore these threats at our peril. And I want to hasten to express our gratitude to the UK and to all of you for joining us in some of our most recent actions to deter these hostile regimes, including the recent seizure of a black market vessel seeking to circumvent oil sanctions. That was a big help to us. That kind of open dialogue and partnership is a great example of how we can work together to ensure our collective defense around the world. It is an objective and obvious truth that a strong America is good for the entire world, and a strong UK is as well. At the same time, it's also obvious that we have to take care of our own houses, so to speak, before we take care of the neighborhood. And let's be honest, among friends here, in both of our nations, there is a need today to fortify our houses against internal challenges as well. In the West, if we make an honest assessment, we must acknowledge that our long-term prosperity and security are currently being undermined by, let's call it a crisis of self-doubt. It's been developing now for years. Elite institutions today tell the young and impressionable that our story is one of oppression and hypocrisy and failure. Our brightest minds are too often taught to view our history only through the lens of its sins.
We're going to put a pause in House Speaker Mike Johnson's earlier remarks at Parliament in the London area and take a quick break as we are still awaiting the president to appear and deliver remarks at today's White House briefing. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+. At 1:20, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC. Plus, we are waiting for a press conference to start. The White House briefing there in that media briefing room. You can see that it is full. Everyone standing by as we wait for the president to also make an appearance, and he is expected to deliver remarks as well. It was scheduled for 1 o'clock. As we stand by for that, we are also playing earlier remarks from House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking at Parliament to the London House Speaker, or Lord Speaker, my bad. All right, let's get back to House Speaker Johnson there in Europe, speaking to the Parliament on Live Impact News.
And industriousness and daring that our nations were built upon. We have faced this in America just as you have here. A truly menacing skepticism towards history and our national institutions. And it's even come to the point where even great heroes like Sir Winston Churchill are questioned for their legacy. What has taken hold is a mindset that defines itself not by what it loves and seeks to preserve, but instead by what it condemns and seeks to tear down. And this growing disaffection we see, particularly among our younger citizens, is a serious threat to the health of both our nations. If the next generation is never exposed to the deeper wisdom of the Western world, or the enduring tradition of the British Parliament, or the genius of America's model of Republican self-government, then why would they feel any obligation to defend or preserve them? Fortunately, history teaches us an important lesson. Just over half a century after American independence, our country faced a moment of reckoning. It was 1838, and for the first time in our short history, America's founding fathers, the men who had led us through the turbulent years of our young nation, were no longer there to guide us. A growing disregard for the rule of law had taken hold at that time, and the cries of mob rule threatened every part of our country. A young legislator at that time, concerned by what he saw as America's deteriorating regard for its past, charged his countrymen with an important choice. Would they uphold their duty and preserve the blessings for which their fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor? Or would they continue on the path of decline and self-destruction? The answer was simple, he said. This experiment in liberty could not survive unless the principles enshrined in the Declaration and institutionalized in our Constitution became their shared civic faith. That rising statement, he was just 28 years old at the time, would one day become president, and he would be called to confront the greatest stress test of the American experiment yet. His likeness stands just a few feet away from here, where we're gathered today, watching over Parliament Square. Abraham Lincoln, of course, wisely understood that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation is the philosophy of government in the next. He knew that our national renewal would not come from repudiating our past, but rather from renewing and recommitting to our best principles, to appealing to the better angels of our nature. The struggle of Lincoln's time shows us that though America may be 250 years old, the question of how best to steward this grand experiment has always been with us. And age-old questions require age-old wisdom. In the West today, we see faith in our foundations and our shared inheritance weakening. And what we have to do is channel the wisdom of our predecessors to chart our own renewal. So what does renewal require? Just a few things. Well, first, it requires remembrance. This is a biblical admonition, in fact. We're to remember our blessings and from where we came. And the great British philosopher G.K. Chesterton warned, every high civilization decays by forgetting obvious things. Things like the dignity of the individual, the stabilizing role of the family, the human yearning for meaning and purpose, and the indispensable relationship between freedom and virtue. In short, we have to remember our foundations, and we have to describe what they are, because the generation behind us seems not to understand this. As Chesterton observed, America was founded on a creed that was set forth, he said, with dogmatic and theological lucidity in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That profound acknowledgement of obvious and undeniable truth shook the foundations of Western democracy and with it the course of human history. Our founders recognized that all of us are made in the image of God. And because of that, every single person has inestimable dignity and value. And our value is not related in any way to the color of our skin or what town or village we hail from, what our talents are, etc. Our value is inherent because it is given to us by our Creator. We built an entire nation upon that premise. And just as our citizens are endowed with God-given and unalienable rights, all nations and all people should adhere to the obvious laws of nature and of nature's God, as our documents say. In his farewell address, the father of our country, George Washington, gave all of his advice that echoes down through his countrymen, even today. And echoes down through the generations and reminding us how we would keep this republic, how we would keep this grand experiment in self-government. And he said famously, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And John Adams was our second president, and he said famously, our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. The late Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher put it even more simply. Freedom, she said, will destroy itself if it has no purpose. Lady Thatcher, just like our founders, understood that free societies that lacked a shared moral and civic foundation inevitably turn elsewhere to compensate. And that reminds us of another important lesson from history. A healthy renewal requires the participation and stewardship of each successive generation. Here, too, the example of the American Revolution proves so instructive. Our founders didn't seek to build a new nation on pure abstraction or mere ideology, nor did they abandon the brilliance of the British tradition, even if they opposed the empire itself. Instead, they drew on the joint inheritance of the English-speaking world, an inheritance rooted in the wisdom of classical thinkers, asserted in the Magna Carta, embraced in common law in the writings of John Locke, and articulated in the Bill of Rights of 1689. These principles found, in the words of Sir Winston Churchill, their most famous expression in the American Declaration of Independence. For Americans, our independence is not a rebuke of our British roots, but rather a renewal of what is best, the best of what Britain had to offer the world. If renewal requires remembrance and stewardship, it also requires responsible citizens. Strong institutions are essential, of course, but when people are taught that their lives are determined by systems and structures.
Time right now is 1:27. As we are monitoring that little picture there, we are expecting to hear from the president any minute now at today's White House briefing. We'll get back to that, as well as our Julie Kay, who's also covering the 1-year mark since the president has gone through his inauguration. After the break, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+. Here we are at 1:30 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We are waiting the president to speak at the White House briefing. This should be happening any moment now, as we have been, that was set for 1 o'clock. So at 1:30, we are still waiting for that. But when that happens, we'll bring that to you here live on Live Impact News. In the meantime, our own Julie Kay is covering this story as well. 1 year since the president was inaugurated, Julie, and you spoke to a number of people, a political professor on politics, as well as getting some local reaction to the president's first year in service.
Yeah, I heard a lot of things because we did just do the classic news thing where I went outside and I just asked random people, what do you think about Trump? We wanted to stay in the city of Charlotte today because one of the biggest stories of Trump's presidency was, at least here, Operation Charlotte Web, which has kind of had reverberations around the state, which is what I talked to Chris Cooper about at Western Carolina University. So we kind of hit on some points of what are the biggest stories from Trump's presidency in North Carolina, and I would say number one, immigration enforcement, that being, Charlotte's Border Patrol deployment that, has kind of set the rest of the cities in the state on edge. Is that going to happen here? As well as Raleigh had some of that as well. Number two, I would say Helene funding. The delay in that from both the state and federal, for whatever reason, that has been kind of the feeling in Western North Carolina of how come there hasn't been more. If you remember President Trump's inauguration, he mentioned Hurricane Helene multiple times that day. And so he made a very clear point to bring that up repeatedly. And the feeling in Western North Carolina is very mixed. But at this point, of course, I think the bottom line is they just simply haven't gotten enough money. And that is not even a political thing to say. It's just a fact that there's just not enough funding at this point. And then the other thing would be tariffs and the economy in general. Of course, we've got the furniture industry in North Carolina that is impacted by that. But at the same time, I would say, and this is what Chris Cooper said, really just the general feeling at the grocery store. Even things that aren't related directly to tariffs or related to anything President Trump has done, people relate the economy in general with the president in office. And so those are really the three things that we talked about, and the things that I heard from people today as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down like that, what does this mean for the daily family? And, you might talk about lower inflation, better interest rates, but if eggs are still costing $5 for 12, then, it just kind of hits home like that. And interesting, because the president was in Western North Carolina shortly after his inauguration and telling folks that he's trying to leave it up to the each state's government and to leave it to North Carolina with, some minimal help from FEMA. So, okay, well, interesting, Julie. I look forward to that report. When are you coming up?
Well, we'll be at 5 and 6 because there's going to be a protest in Uptown for the 1 year of President Trump. So we'll actually be there live with protesters, seeing what they have to say as well.
All right. Julie Kay in for the 1 year mark for President Trump, and we'll look forward to seeing you on WCNC Charlotte at 5 and 6. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so again, the president is expected to speak at the White House briefing. That should be coming up any minute now at 1:33. We will continue to monitor that scene and bring it to you right here on Live Impact News. In the meantime, House Speaker Johnson continuing his remarks in London to their parliament.
Today on the sidelines, particularly younger generations. We should want our citizens involved, gainfully employed and contributing to their communities, of course. Stable and thriving societies need families that raise children. They need churches and communities that form character, and patriotic men and women dedicated to leaving their country better than they found it. The simple truth is that freedom cannot survive if we outsource our responsibility as citizens. And this is a fact that remains true at a national level. We cannot fail in our responsibility to protect our people and their security. Amongst our allies, we see the UK and Europe stepping up as faithful partners here, and I want to declare that today. Whether it's NATO's nation's historic commitment to raise their investment in defense, which we applaud, or the AUKUS alliance deepening its cooperation in submarines and undersea defense, our partnership is proving that nations can prioritize their individual interests responsibly and at the same time make strides towards strengthening alliances and preserving the freedom and sovereignty of our nation states. And our current U.S. Ambassador to the UK, Warren Stevens, who sits here up here with me today, said it recently very well. He said, "America first does not mean and will never mean America alone." Finally, renewal takes courage. From the defeat of Napoleon to the heroic resistance to the Blitz, to the bravery of our soldiers in the liberation of Western Europe, the British people have given the world some of the greatest demonstrations of courage in human history. You are the heirs of Burke and Locke and Smith, the home of Shakespeare, the cradle of free speech. You are the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution and the nation that helped end the slave trade. And from these shores you set sail to pioneer a new world built on British custom, British fortitude, and British law. Together, we, all of us, are the legacy of those ancient ancestors who came before us. Their courage is part of who we are, and we do well to remember that. Today it takes our courage, clarity, and conviction to defend truth, just as our ancestors did. And it means being able to say that some things are true and good and enduring, and others are not. And to call evil and madness what it is. It means repairing what we see in clear disrepair. From restoring, for example, secure borders that protect from the real and measurable harms of mass uncontrolled migration, to pushing back on policies that erode our citizens' most basic liberties, especially the fundamental freedoms of speech and conscience. History teaches us we can never go down the road of censoring and silencing unpopular opinions because liberty is kept alive in the free marketplace of ideas. History further teaches us that the best solution to the problem of free speech is always more speech. And those being unjustly persecuted for exercising those freedoms, such as Jimmy Lai, the British national being held in Hong Kong, must be defended. And the U.S. stands with the UK as you work to free him. As we chart our renewal, America has no intention of walking alone. In fact, to do so would be self-defeating. More than ever before, we need the British people to be great and proud and patriotic, and you are. To work in close concert with us as partners and friends, and to defend the security of the Western world. That means secure borders. It means, obviously, serious investments in our shared defense and maintaining strategic strongholds around the world. And we will figure this out together. But again, the surest way that we protect this special relationship long term is by renewing and recommitting to our foundational principles. As Churchill taught us, the strongest alliances are between kindred countries of kindred principles. What has always set us apart from the rest of the world, our commitment to liberty, our pursuit of excellence, our desire to put faith and family at the center of our lives, these are things that distinguish the free world from regimes that trample on the most basic principles of democracy and human dignity. While the West is not without its flaws, our greatest strength has always been our faith in human progress and our capacity for self-correction. Strong and lethal militaries matter, robust and thriving economies matter, but they mean little if we forget what we're fighting for. Churchill understood that the fate of the West would ultimately be decided not on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds and souls of its people. And Ronald Reagan saw this a generation later. When he came to Parliament at the height of the Cold War, the first U.S. president ever to do so, his message was clear. He said the free world would prevail against the scourge of communism only if it recovered its confidence and resolve in itself. And today, I believe we stand at a similar moment. Together, our strength is real, and the fate of the free world rests on our will to defend and preserve it. Today, ultimately, our renewal depends on whether we, as leaders and citizens, equip the next generation, whether we arm them with the confidence to articulate the ideals of the West and the will to defend them, not to shrink into national reluctance, but to stand strong in national pride. Because our countries really do have an unparalleled heritage of achieving good and advancing mankind, both individually and in this trusted partnership. Thankfully, our special relationship has always proven much more powerful and enduring than the enemies we face. Together, we represent a common history and heritage, and the greatest, most free, most prosperous, most successful, and benevolent civilization the world has ever known. And it will endure only as long as we reject, decline, and recommit to our foundations. I'll leave you with the thought of Ronald Reagan one more. He said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. And just like all things, great civilizations don't defy the laws of gravity. They rise and fall with the individual actions of each individual generation. So today, my friends, we have great reason for hope. Today, I see the UK with renewed sovereignty and self-determination. I see our European allies with an advantage over our adversaries in economic power, and most importantly, in spirit. I see younger generations rejecting the indulgence of self-interest and embracing pursuits of greater importance and higher purpose. And I see those who cherish the lessons of Churchill and Lincoln, who are ready to offer this age heroes of their own. With the right choices and the right leadership, we can chart our renewal, and we can seize the great moment together if we truly seek it and fight for it. Thank you again for this profound honor. God bless you all. God bless the United Kingdom. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
And you're listening to previously recorded remarks from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is in London today, delivering those remarks to Parliament. As we wait for President Trump to join the White House briefing this afternoon, we are awaiting his arrival. We possibly could be hearing some remarks on Greenland amid tensions over the region. And this is the one-year mark as well since his inauguration. So as we wait for him to speak, he might be there any minute now. The briefing was scheduled to start at 1 o'clock. We'll bring that to you live here on Live Impact News. In the meantime, a quick break on WCNC Plus. We'll be right back. At 1:44, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, happening right now as we wait for the president to deliver remarks at the White House briefing, potentially on tensions amid trying to acquire Greenland. We're also looking at this. This is a Free America rally taking place in Washington, D.C. as the president marks 1 year since taking office in his inauguration. Let's go ahead and listen in on WCNC Plus.
With migrant solidarity Solidarity Mutual Aid. Over this past year, we have seen raids sweep our communities, ICE tear down people's doors, families torn apart, people disappeared and arrested without warrants off the streets. Masked agents from a whole alphabet soup of federal enforcement agencies have worked and continue to work alongside ICE and MPD, yes, MPD, to terrorize our neighbors. Our immigrant friends and neighbors have been disappeared to torture prisons in El Salvador, deported back to danger, and hundreds remain in a detention system that aims to prolong and profit suffering while deaths are on the rise. Conditions are getting increasingly dire. And yet, at every point in this past year, the DC community has responded with a loud and clear voice saying, "Free DC." Thousands of us have shown up and called the hotline, recorded abuses in our streets, accompanied our immigrant neighbors to court, to ICE, and delivered food for those that have been afraid to come outside. And where are our leaders? The DC Council has been silent. Earlier this morning, Democrats joined Republicans in Congress to introduce legislation to send hundreds of millions more dollars to ICE and CBP. And Muriel Bowser prefers to kowtow with racists and stand alongside Stephen Miller and Donald Trump than her own constituents. As we step into year 2 of this assault, we remain steadfast in our fight to keep our communities safe and say, "Chinga la polimigra," and we won't step down until DC is free and our friends and neighbors are safe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Malaika, and I'm an organizer at Women's March. We are a national mass mobilization organization that works to move everyday people into action. We are so proud today to stand here with all of you as we walk out for a free America. A year ago, 150,000 people gathered here in D.C. to make sure that the world knew that we would not go silently into another Trump administration. We have been here along with our partners every year for 9 years because we know that fascism requires our silence. It requires our complicity. But we refuse to be silent. We will not comply. We will stand up every single day because that's what democracy requires. This is what.
All right, let's join the White House briefing right now. You can see President Trump just entering the room. Let's go ahead and listen in here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Accomplishments, and as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th, and it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished, but we've done more than any other administration has done by far. In terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars. Nobody's really seen very much like it. I think it's appropriate that because Minnesota is so much in the fray, and I say to my people all the time, and they're so busy doing other things, they don't say it like they should. They're apprehending murderers and drug dealers and a lot of bad people, and these are just some of the more recent ones that we have, and I can show you some of the people, vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? international murder. These are people that are living, if they're apprehended, and either put in jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't have open border policies of Biden, none of this, all of the things that all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers, they're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. In California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money, they never had a life, they never had a government, they never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman. So here's another one. And I have, oh, by the way, we just took out, these are all what ICE is doing. And it's a dangerous job. These are rough people. Weapons. This one here is very bad. I'm going through this because I think we have plenty of time. I'm going to beautiful place in Switzerland where we'll be, I'm sure I'm very happily awaited for. In Switzerland, they don't know about this. They don't have this problem. They have other problems, but they don't have this problem. Look, killed somebody. Look, and these are rough people. These are not, this was all allowed into our country through open borders. These dumbest policies, you know, men and women's sports is dumb. But to me, having an open border for the world to come in, drug dealers and prisoners. Venezuela, as an example, opened their prisons into the United States. That's why one of the reasons I felt so strongly against Venezuela. Now I'm loving Venezuela. They've been working with us so well. It's been so nice. And an unbelievably nice woman also did a very incredible thing, as you know, a few days ago. We're talking to her, and maybe we can get her involved in some way. I'd love to be able to do that. Maria, maybe we can do that. But we're dealing with the people and the president and all of the people in Venezuela, and we've been doing great. The oil companies are getting ready to make massive investments there. They have more oil than even Saudi Arabia. There you go. These are rough water. This is all Minnesota, every one of them. This is one state out of many. And these people are, let's see, yeah, these are all, so far, people that came from outside of the country. They were allowed in by Sleepy Joe Biden, Crooked Joe Biden, whichever you like. You can call him whatever you like. They're both right. He's sleepy and he's crooked. He was the worst president we've ever had. And we've had some bad ones too. I can tell you, all you have to do is look at trade. You're not getting bored with this, right? I hope you don't. But these are people that you have to see. Strong arm rape, aggravated assault with a weapon, and many other crimes. Gang member, known as one of the toughest people around. These are tough people. So this is what the people are trying to protect, because all ICE wants to do is get them out of our country, bring them to prisons and jails and mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday. Look at it. 24 convictions. 24 times convicted. They're not charges. These are convictions. So he comes from outside the country. Do you think he's going to be good here? He's convicted 24 times. He's going to be good here, right? It doesn't work that way. He's a man murderer. It's one of many. One of many. All they want to do is get him out. They want to take him out of our country. And we're met with paid agitators and insurrectionists, troublemakers. They're paid. You know, when the woman was shot, and I felt terribly about that. And I understand both sides of it. But when she was shot, there was another woman that was screaming shame, 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 right? You saw it. So loud. It was like a professional opera singer. She was so loud and so professional. She wasn't a woman that was hurt, like, oh, my heart's injured. She was a professional. She's shame, shame. She's screaming shame, shame. I said, that's not a normal person. That's a professional. These are professional agitators and professional people that want to see our country do badly. But that's not happening because we have the hottest country anywhere in the world, despite this stuff. Look at this. All top of the line criminals. They're not going to be good. They're not going to be well behaved here. I could do thousands. We had over 3,000 in the last fairly short while. Just in Minnesota. What's the number, Carol?
10,000.
10,000.
10,000 criminals arrested in Minnesota alone.
10,000 criminals. And these are serious criminals. Now, how can a place with 10,000 criminals, how can you have a state? And yet they're fighting us. Yeah, I like that guy. He keeps nodding to me. You agree with me, I guess. I like him. I don't know who he is, but I like him. He keeps nodding. He says, you're right. He's obviously a little on the right side, maybe. Look. These are rough ones. So we just took this off a stack. We have many stacks like this. Like, I could go 30 times what I'm showing you now. Relations with Hezbollah, that's nice. White House. I'm just looking at these charges. It's just pretty incredible. Many murderers, many, many murderers. People that murdered. So what ICE does, and Border Patrol is incredible, too. I mean, Paul Perez and that group is incredible. Mostly Hispanic, by the way. They're like 60% Hispanic. You know, they talk about Hispanic. They're mostly Hispanic, right? And they're unbelievable people. And then they say, oh, we discriminate against. I love Hispanic. They are unbelievable. Entrepreneurial. They have everything. I did great. I did the highest. Nobody ever got numbers like I got from the standpoint of being a Republican. But even if you look at Texas, I won the entire border along Texas, between Texas and Mexico. It never happened before. Nobody's ever done that before. I did it. As a Republican, I did it. I love the Hispanic. And they accuse us of all sorts of things. 60% of the people we're talking about, they're the best people we have, and they're Hispanic. The Border Patrol is largely Hispanic. ICE is largely Hispanic. They're unbelievable people. I don't know how they can take the abuse. They're taking rough people like this, like all of them. We have 10,000 at least. I could have done 10,000 of them. You're lucky I only did like 100. And this isn't even the worst of the group. They have murderers. They have some people we can't use their picture for legal reasons, but they're up for murder in their own country. And we jeopardize their case. Well, we send them back. And we coordinate with other countries. A tremendous amount of work. All allowed in here by an open border policy of the worst president in the history of our country. A man that didn't win the election, by the way. It was a rigged election. Everybody knows that now. And by the way, numbers are coming out that show it even more plainly. We caught him. So I just want you to know that it's a terrible thing. Here's the book on accomplishments. And this is something, I'm glad my finger wasn't in that sucker. That could have done some damage, but you know what? I wouldn't have shown the pain. I would have gone back. Boy, did you hear that? That was nasty. But I would not have shown the pain. I would have acted like nothing happened as my finger fell off. That was a nasty. I think somebody did that. It was him. It was my man. How were you? You didn't do it. I know you did. I know you didn't. So, but here's the book. These are all things we have. I'm going to read a few of the samples, but look at this. These are all, each line is something that we did. Nobody did that before. And it's big stuff, too. Look, we have the hottest country in the world. So, I will read you a few. We ended Biden's stagflation. We were in stagflation. That's a disaster. That's far worse than inflation. As you know, he had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years. Pick your choice. But they had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. We have it right down to a normal number now. We're going to get it even a little bit lower. Created super high. What we've done with growth is incredible. We created super high economic growth, and America is booming. It's booming. There are thousands of businesses right now that are being built. Many of the biggest factories in the world are being built right in our country. They're not going to other countries. They're leaving other countries. Fourth quarter GDP is on track to pass perhaps much more than 5% growth, and that's despite the fact that we had a Democrat shutdown. They shut down our country, and we had 5%. Nobody in this room has ever heard about 5%. I think it could be 20% if we do it right. If we don't, every time we have good numbers, they raise interest rates. You shouldn't do it. In the old days, if you had good numbers, they'd lower interest rates, or they wouldn't do anything. Here, they try and kill it. They always try and kill success. Over the last 20, 25 years, that's the way. In the old days, if you had good numbers, the market would go through the roof. Today, if you have good numbers, the market goes down. But by the way, we've had the best stock market in history, the best 401ks in history, and we inherited a mess. The numbers that we inherited were way up, and now we brought them, almost all of them, way down. We brought them way down. I mean, I'm not getting... maybe I have the bad public relations people, but we're not getting it across. We inherited high numbers and we brought them way down. And look at gasoline. They have places in the country now, $1.99 a gallon. $1.99, $2.30, $2.50. I guess the average now they're saying is $2.31. I mean, he was at $4.50 and $5 for periods of time. And he went back to the Trump formula, but he didn't do it properly, and he really went back to parts of it because you would have had $8 gasoline if they didn't, but he didn't do it properly. He had people that didn't know what they were doing. Core inflation for the last 3 months is 1.6%. 1.6. Their core inflation was so high that nobody could even calculate it. Under Biden, real incomes declined $3,000. Think of that, $3,000. That's a year. In 12 months, Trump real incomes went up by $2,000 and $3,000 and even in some cases $5,000. It's a tremendous difference. Stock market has set 52 all-time record highs during the course of the 11 months, because this was done on 11 months. Now we are actually officially 12 months as of today. 52 all-time record highs. That means 401ks did great. I have people see me all the time, policemen that guard us really well, and got to know them a little bit. And they said, "Sir, you're making me look so good. My 401k is through the roof. My wife thinks I'm the greatest genius, that I'm a financial genius, like Warren Buffett." He told me that. He said, I think they have better returns than Warren Buffett right now. But he said, all my life, my wife has been criticizing me for not being smart financially. Now, all of a sudden, she loves me more. But we added $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts, saving many people. I mean, they were going out of business. Think of it. We added $9 trillion of value to retirement accounts, savings accounts, and 401ks. That's during the course of 12 months. And I think it's probably 11 months because I don't think they have it for the 12. They have it for the 11. Added $9 trillion of value. Lifted more than 1.2 million Americans off food stamps in 1 year. They would have had another 1.2 million. We would have had, welfare would have gone up. And instead of investing $18 trillion in our country, now it's probably more than that, but $18 trillion and having thousands of plants being built all over the country, you would have had thousands of plants closing all over the country, and you would have had disinvestment, and you would have had welfare going way up. You know, if you look at SNAP, take a look at SNAP, what happened with that? It was at $7 billion, and it came out to over $51 billion. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. The past administration, they had no clue. Or they were really bad, but they basically had no clue. But they did have a concept. I mean, they're still trying to sell the idea of men playing in women's sports. You saw that in the Supreme Court. I mean, some of those justices were fighting for them, too. They were fighting for them. But you saw that just the other day in the Supreme Court. Men playing in women's sport doesn't work. Secured a record-breaking $18 trillion in commitments for new investments. Apple, NVIDIA, SoftBank, Oracle, TSMC, Johnson & Johnson, Eli Lilly and Company, Micron, AstraZeneca, General Motors, Hyundai, Ford, Honda, GE Aerospace, many, many others. I left a Ford plant a week ago in Michigan that they were going to close 2 years ago, and now they just announced that they're going 24 hours around the clock making cars. Tariffs did it. I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. I think to me it reads so plainly. Couldn't be plainer. You're allowed to do a license. Tariff is probably less severe than what a license could be. But think of it. You're allowed to do a license, and then they have a clause at the end, something to the effect, or what is necessary, something to that effect. And what is necessary with tariffs. I don't know where there's a case even there, but we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, and if we lose that case, it's possible we're going to have to do the best we can in paying it back. I don't know how that's going to be done very easily without hurting a lot of people. But we're waiting for that case anxiously, and we have tremendous national security because of tariffs and tremendous income. You know, we have, and by the way, no inflation. So everyone said, oh, tariffs will cause inflation. We have no inflation. We have very little inflation. Biden had inflation, and he didn't do tariffs. We had a huge problem. We have a 62% reduction in our trade deficit. So if you had a 1% reduction, a normal president would have a 1%. Everybody would be high-fiving. Had a 62% reduction. Next year, we won't have a trade deficit. We secured most favored nations agreements to slash drug prices by as much. To me, I think this might be the biggest thing of all. We get zero talk about it. The New York Times had a story way in the back of the paper, a little story about it. I think it's the biggest thing there is when you talk about health care. Drug prices will go down more than ever before for any country because we were priced at such a level that we were subsidizing the entire world, big place in the world. We were paying 10, 12, 13 times more than other countries. 13 times more, not 13%, 13 times more. A pill that was selling in London for $10 would sell in New York for $130. It's 13 times. More than that even. But we secured most favored nations agreements to slash drug prices by as much as 300, 400, 500, and even 600%, including with Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Eli Lilly, Nova Nordisk, Gilead Sciences, EMD, Serenio, and many others. If you look at some of the prices that are coming down, where a price would come down $1,300 coming down to $87. Think of it. So something that was costing $1,300 is now costing $87. And the fake news doesn't want to write about it. That's why I do this. I don't like to do this, to be honest with you. But I do it because got to get the word out. We signed one big, beautiful bill. I call it the Great Big Beautiful Bill, delivering the largest tax cuts in history. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. We made interest on car loans tax deductible for U.S.-built automobiles only. So if you buy an automobile built in the United States, we're not doing it for Germany and Canada and different places. We're doing it only if it's built here. We want them to be built here. A lot of the Canadian auto plants are closing and they're moving into the United States. Same thing with Mexico, same thing with Germany, and same thing with Japan and other countries. They're moving into the United States because of tariffs. Because they don't want to pay the tariffs. It's too much. They can't pay the tariffs. So they're coming here. Nothing different than what other smart countries did. But it works better for us. Under my leadership, it's not done properly, but it's done properly. We have, again, more plants being built than at any time in the history of our country. Passed the largest spending cuts in American history, and that was true in my first. We had a tremendous first term also. We rebuilt our military. We had one of the best. We had the best economy in the history of our country, but we're blowing it away now. When this stuff starts opening up, you're not going to see anything like it probably ever again. We slashed the federal budget deficit by 27% in a single year. Think of that, 27. You could do it 2%, 1%, 0.5%, 27%. And that's with all of the things we have to do, all of the people we have to put on the payroll to get rid of people that are murderers. Again, when you see people in Minnesota that are murderers, these people are fighting to keep them there. And I say to Christie and to Tom Homan, the great people, they're working so hard. Look at the border. The border is now secure. First time, Biden said you couldn't do it. You need legislation. I had no legislation. I said close the border. Within 1 month, we had almost nobody coming in. Now for the last 8 months, nobody came into our country illegally. And I find that hard to believe because you'd think somebody, because it used to be millions of people just poured into our country. And the people that do that are Democrat sort of aligned. So, they're not doing me any favor.
All right, we will get back to the president delivering remarks there at the White House briefing live after this 2-minute break on Live Impact News on WCNC+. At 2:16 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, I'm Jane Monreal as we continue to listen to the president deliver remarks on his one-year anniversary of his second term from the White House briefing, speaking on several topics. Let's continue to listen in on Live Impact News.
Because we have so much wasted regulation, stupid regulations, regulations where they go by California, which is a disaster state, with a governor that truly is doing a bad job. He's killing that state. If he ever ran the country, this country would be Venezuela very quickly. Using tariffs slashed the U.S. trade deficit by an incredible 77%. The trade deficit is down, and that doesn't include the last month where we had our best month. We slashed the trade deficit by an incredible 77% in 1 year with no inflation, something that everyone said could not be done. So we had essentially no inflation. In fact, the last month we had almost no inflation. But we slashed the trade deficit by 77%. If you slashed it by 1%, that was good. Again, we did that with tariffs and intelligence. And we did that with November 5th, great election. We secured historic trade deals to reduce barriers on U.S. exports with countries covering 40% of all U.S. trade. Think of that. American exports are up by more than $150 billion this year. People said, oh, we're not exporting. All we do is buy. If you keep buying, you're not going to have a country for very long. So we increased exports by more than $150 billion. Investment in American factories is up 41%. That's a record. Nobody goes 41% up. You go 2% up, 1% up. You go down by 3%. If Kamala got elected, the 41% up would be 41% down. We removed over 270,000 bureaucrats from the federal payroll. That's another thing. So we have, we announce our unemployment numbers, call it unemployment or employment. And they were very good, but we could make them great. But we've slashed tremendous numbers of people off the federal payroll. Because ultimately, if you're on the federal payroll, I mean, we have jobs where they had 10 people for every job. So we cut. Now, if you want to see some good numbers, I'll hire 1 million people. We cut millions of people off the federal payroll. I don't like doing that, but the good news, I don't feel badly because they're getting private sector jobs and they're getting sometimes twice as much money, 3 times as much money. They're getting factory jobs. They're getting much better jobs and much higher pay. But all I have to do is say, like, what the Democrats do all the time. They hire 1 million people, and then they hire another million, and they load it up, and it says, oh, they only have a 3% unemployment rate. It's a fake rate. So with us, we're proud of the fact that we cut so many because, again, I don't want to cut people. But when you cut them and they go out and get a better job, I like to cut them. And sometimes they have to be forced to do that because, it's like they want to stay where they are. They don't know. And then all of a sudden they end up, we have many cases, Caroline, where people were devastated. They hated Trump. I got caught from my very boring federal job where they had, again, sometimes 10 people to do one job. And they were very upset. And now they ended up with a job where they get paid 3 times more money. They're ending up buying houses. It's like crazy. So they went from not liking me to liking me a lot because it's hard to get. We need people. We need people. It's one of the reasons. I mean, when you have good people on the farm or good people in hotels and everything else, we want to work with them as much as we can. Under Biden, 1 out of 4 jobs added was a government job. Think of that. So 25% of the jobs added. That's when you know that, that's 25% of the jobs aren't real jobs. But again, I could do that. I could add 2 million jobs right now, would have an unemployed. I could say just hire some more people. I do the opposite. I say get rid of everybody that's unnecessary because that's the way you make America great again. When you have, all these jobs where people are sitting around doing nothing and they get a lot of money by the government, it's no good. But that's what the Democrats do. They show, oh, we were at 4% unemployment. That's a good number. But they just add jobs, or they wouldn't cut. They would never cut jobs. Under Trump, 100% of all new jobs created have been in the private sector. Think of that. Not 1% has gone to federal. So under Biden, 1 out of 4 was a government job. Under Trump, 100% of the new jobs created, 100% came from the private sector. That's how you make your country wealthy and strong and good. We inherited the worst border in history and turned it into the strongest border in history. Illegal crossings have plummeted to the lowest level ever recorded, down 99.999%. That means down 100%. 99.99. Now, I want to find out who that one person is. For 8 months in a row, zero, and these are government numbers, these are not my numbers. For 8 months in a row, 0 illegal aliens were admitted to our country. 0. Nobody came in, unless they came in legally. We have a big process for having people come in legally, by the way. A lot of people are coming in legally. They have to prove they love our country. They have to prove that they're not going to need welfare. A lot of things they have to prove. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration, where because we're getting all of these illegal people out. People that came in illegally, in many cases they're criminals, in many, many cases. Remember when they used to say that the people that come into our country as immigrants are very nice people, they're wonderful people, they don't commit crime. No, they make our criminals look like babies. They make our Hell's Angels look like the sweetest people on earth. The Hell's Angels are now considered a nice, high-quality person. I like the Hell's Angels. They voted for me. They protected me, actually, believe it or not. But they make our criminals look like babies. These are some of the most vicious people anywhere in the world. They came from the Congo. The prisons, I know the Congo because I ended the war with the Congo and Rwanda. Tough group, very tough group. They came from prisons in the Congo. Some of the toughest, meanest people you'll ever meet. Thank you very much. They allowed them to come into America. These are tough people. Before my election, 100% of net job creation was going to foreign migrants. Since my inauguration, 100% of the net jobs created have gone to American-born citizens. That's a big thing. In other words, we're now taking care of our people. 100% of net jobs created have gone to the American-born people. Before that, we didn't care. Designated Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and we've hit them hard. You've seen what we've done on the water. We're starting to do that on land. The land is much easier, actually. Water is incredible. We did that on the water so that when you do it on the land, they don't go to the water. Nobody's going into the boat business right now, I can tell you. 97% down drugs coming in by water. Think of it, 97%. Nobody ever heard of that before. They heard 2%, 1%. It went up 2%. 97, and we're looking for the 3%. Who the hell are the 3%? They're crazy. But we've taken out almost 100% of the drugs coming in by water. Now we're going to be very shortly starting drugs coming in by land. We know exactly where they're coming from. Remove tens of thousands of illegal alien gang members, drug dealers, murderers, child predators, human traffickers, fraudsters, savage criminals, and others. We removed them from our country. They're out. They're gone. In some cases, they're so dangerous that we put them in jail because we don't want to give them to their country. Their country doesn't do anything, and they end up coming back. We have some that they're so bad that we don't want to really release them. We want to put them in a jail where we know they're properly ensconced. Think of that. Remove tens of thousands of illegal alien gang members, drug dealers, murderers, child predators, human traffickers, fraudsters, and savage criminals. Why wouldn't you want them removed? The reason is because these are insurrectionists that are doing this work. And, you know, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, you know, they're dealing with rough people. Are they going to make a mistake? Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents and her father in particular I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way. I don't know. It's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans. It's so sad. It just happens. It's terrible. Halted all refugee admissions to the United States, including from Somalia, which is a terrible, terrible place, another dangerous place. And we also stopped the pirates because they get the same treatment as the drug boats. So when Somalia, the Somalians, you know what they're good at? That's about the only thing they're good at is they're good at pirating ships at sea, big ships. So you have a huge oil tanker with millions of gallons, millions of barrels of oil. And if it gets hit by a big weapon, the whole thing blows up. And they don't want to fight, because if they do, they're told by their insurance companies, do not hand over the ship. And they're not allowed to have any guns on the ship. They're literally, you have these massive ships being taken over by a Somalian small boat with a big weapon. Because if they hit the side of the ship can blow up you talk about a blow up. Bad, we've seen some bad things happen. And the insurance companies, some of these ships cost more than $1 billion to build. And the insurance companies say, look, we'd rather give them money than take a chance on $1 billion insurance policy. But they don't have to worry about it, because we hit them the same way we hit the people with the drugs in their boat. They don't know what the hell happened. But all of a sudden, there are no pirates at sea. Do you notice? We haven't had a boat taken in a little while. Came out of Somalia, a really corrupt place. It's not a country. They don't have government. They don't have anything. I always hate to see this. Ilhan Omar, she comes from Somalia, a backward country, probably the worst country. They say it's the worst country in the world, if it's a country. I don't even think it's a country. There's no organization, no anything. They don't have police. They don't have military. They don't have anything. They just have people running around killing each other and trying to pirate ships. But she'll come here, comes, and then she wants to tell us how to run our country. The Constitution says that I am entitled to this. I can't stand her. Terminated all taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens and kicked 275,000 illegals off of Social Security. They were illegally getting Social Security. 275,000 people. I'm telling you, it's not that this is pleasurable, but if I were an elected president, this country was going to be destroyed quickly, very quickly. I think within a year, if you had Kamala or a Joe type. I mean, Joe was a disaster, but if you had Kamala, he was the replacement. I was up by like 25 points on Joe, and they said, hey, let's get somebody else. This never happened. Well, I had so many firsts. You're leading somebody by a lot, and they say, oh, let's take him out, let's put somebody. That's like I said to Dana White the other night. I said, you know, Dana, it's like you have a fighter, two fighters. One guy is winning by a lot, and they say, oh, let's take this guy out, let's put a new fighter in the ring with him. That's what happened to me. I was doing great with Biden.
We're going to break away from President Trump's remarks from the White House briefing and bring you a bit of some breaking news right now as this is happening. Sorry about that, but we're looking at delays now on I-85, the ramp to I-485. You can see in that top right-hand corner in the University City Concord Mills area. It looks like an overturned utility truck up there straight ahead of you. See the flashing lights, and it looks like the ramp is blocked to Huntersville from I-85 north. We're waiting to reach out, or we've reached out to Medic, but so far, looking at some of the other angles on our cameras, you can see delays pretty heavy and slow right now, 85 northbound to 485, and it's going to be there for a while. So we'll keep tabs on that. We'll let you know if and when it reopens. First, we'll take a 2-minute break here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. Right now at 2:34 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we are following this closure with a traffic delay now on I-85. It is the ramp to 485. So this is the ramp to Huntersville Matthews right now from northbound side of 85 to the inner or the inner ramp to 485 as you make your way towards Matthews. The original report coming to us around 2:20, so not too long ago, just about 10-15 minutes ago, and it was reported as an overturned utility truck. It doesn't seem that the truck, if it was there, is overturned, but definitely going to find some closures now with that ramp shut down. That's really putting the pinch on the ride there for 85. So something to keep in mind if your travels do take you out that way. In the meantime, let's get you back out to the president. He is speaking on this one-year anniversary since his inauguration in 2025 and making remarks at the White House briefing. Let's listen in on Live Impact News.
We're here. They cut the hand off one man because he called the police. Who called the police? I did. You took my apartment from me. Boom, no hand. This is what they sent us. Restoring law and order, new category. D.C. and Memphis, federal task forces deployed massive numbers of federal law enforcement officers and National Guard to restore safety. Crime down in D.C. is almost down to nothing. D.C. was a very, very dangerous place, and I think you probably know better than I do. I have a lot of people in the media thanked me for that, but some of them found it hard to thank me. But you know, D.C. is now, look how beautiful. D.C. is now, you can walk right from here to a restaurant, right through the center of town. You can be with your child, with your loved one, with your lover. Your lover's not going to be killed anymore, so you can act like a real lover. But you can walk right through the middle of the town, and D.C. is beautiful again too. You notice we took all the fences down, almost all. The rest are coming down. We got the graffiti all off. National Guard's been amazing. You know, we didn't tell them to do that. That's not their job description. But they were picking up garbage and everything. They were great. And I don't know. To me, a town it looks better when you have military people. These are big, strong guys, the bad guys look at them and they say, we're not going to mess around. But what they don't know is that we took over 2,000 people out, permanently out of D.C. These were career criminals. But I feel much better seeing those people there. I went in a couple of times and had dinner in D.C. I walked right down the middle of the street. I felt very safe. A year ago, I couldn't have done that. I would have been crazy to have done that. And Secret Service wouldn't let me do it. They weren't thrilled anyway, I will tell you. It wasn't like they were thrilled, but we did it, and it was great. But D.C. is a great thing, and we have virtually no crime in D.C. anymore. And before we did this move, it was we could do the same thing with Chicago. You know, we brought Chicago down 25%, even though we just had a minimal crew there. We brought Wisconsin down. We brought Minnesota down, way down, even though everything's a fight, you know, because they want to keep those people that are lying on the floor. They want to keep those people in Minnesota, but they really don't. I don't think the real people of Minnesota, it's a very corrupt place, and the elections are totally corrupt. I feel I won it all 3 times. Nobody's won that state since Richard Nixon. It's a rigged state. And the Somalians vote as one group, even if they're not citizens, and they vote as one group, and you know, you get 600,000 votes against you. They all ought to get the hell out of here. They're bad for our country. Nationwide achieved the largest reduction in violent crime on record. So this just came out. Nationwide, over the last 11 months, achieved the largest reduction in violent crime on record, including the largest one-year drop in murders ever recorded. Almost 2,000 lives were saved. That's despite the fact that we took in criminals under the leadership of the Democrats and Joe Biden. More motor vehicle theft is down by 100,000 vehicles nationwide. That's another. Nationwide, the motor vehicle theft was out of control, and now it's very much in control. It was down by more than 100,000 vehicles to a record low. Began the process of eliminating cashless bail policies across the nation. You got to get rid of your sanctuary cities, and I hope our people know that we're not going to pay sanctuary cities. We're not going to pay them anymore. They are sanctuary for criminals. They hold criminals. We're not going to pay. They can sue us, and maybe they'll win. But we're not giving money to sanctuary cities anymore as of the beginning of the month. We began the process of eliminating the cashless bail. Well, cashless bail is where it all started. It's a disaster. And then other places. I don't know if it started in New York. I remember it starting in New York. So if somebody comes in, murders somebody, and they let them out, no bail, no nothing. Basically, cashless bail means you just get the hell out. And they go outside. We have one case where a guy murders somebody, gets released, and goes out and murders somebody. 2 people in one day. No, we got to get rid of cashless bail. They got to pay, got to have bail. There's a reason for bail, long tested. Signed an executive order to bring back mental institutions and insane asylums. We're going to have to bring them back. Hate to build those suckers, but you got to get the people off the streets. You know, we used to have, when I was growing up, we had in my area in Queens, I grew up in Queens, we had a place called Creedmoor. Creedmoor, did anybody know that? Creedmoor. It was a big, I said, Mom, why are those bars on the building? I used to play Little League baseball there at a place called Cunningham Park. I was quite the baseball player, you wouldn't believe. But I said to my mother, Mom, she would be there, always there for me. She said, son, you could be a professional baseball player. I said, thanks, Mom. I said, why are those bars on the windows? Big building, big, powerful building. It loomed over the park, actually. She said, well, people that are very sick are in that building. I said, boy, I used to always look at that building and I'd see this big building, big tall building. It loomed over the park. It was sort of, now that I think, it was a pretty unfriendly sight. But I'll never forget, I don't know if it's still there, because they got rid of most of them. The Democrats in New York, they took them down, and the people live on the streets now. That's why you have a lot of the people in California and other places, they live in the streets. They took the mental institutions down. They're expensive. But I'd say, why does that building have those bars? Boy, it wasn't normal. You're used to looking at like a window. But this one, you look at it, all this steel, vicious steel, tiny windows, bars all over the place. Nobody was getting out. It's called a mental institution. That was an insane asylum. Designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, and many others. It is. America is respected again on the world stage. That's another topic. Obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capability, and Operation Midnight Hammer was one of the most successful anyone's ever seen. CNN fake news, I don't know where they are. CNN, anybody from CNN here? Fake news, nobody wants to raise their hand anymore. They used to, here. Now if you're with CNN, you don't raise your hand. But they said, well, maybe it wasn't that successful, which I really was angry because these pilots took their life in their hands. 2 o'clock in the morning with no moon, dead dark, guns shooting at them. They went in with those beautiful B-2s, and every single bomb went down an air shaft and obliterated it. And CNN came out and said, well, maybe it wasn't, by a scam writer who wrote, fake stories, a lot of fake stories on other topics, right? Because when we did it, we said, that's a terrible thing. The pilots came back and they said, we hit everything. They did a great job. Then on top of that, we launched from a submarine about 30 Tomahawks on top of everything else. The place was obliterated. CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Turned out it was worse than it was. You know who could tell you that? The Iranians would tell you that. Because if they do anything, they're going to have to start a brand new place. But they did an amazing job. That was like what we did with Venezuela. I mean, nobody's ever seen a military operation like that. Ended 8 unendable wars in 10 months. These were unendable wars. Cambodia and Thailand fighting for years. Kosovo and Serbia. The Congo and Rwanda. Pakistan and India, they were really going at it. 8 planes shot down. They were going to go nuclear, in my opinion. The Prime Minister of Pakistan was here, and he said President Trump saved 10 million people and maybe much more than that. They're both nuclear countries. Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia were going to fight over a dam, and I got them to stop. I still got to work it out because they put a dam up in Ethiopia that stops the flow from a little river called the Nile. I always think of the Nile being in Egypt, beautiful Nile with the pyramids, but they put a dam up. You know who paid for the dam? The United States of America. It's the biggest dam, I think, in the world. They put a dam up. I said, how did you let that happen? Why would we have done that? We financed it. This country would, I don't know, maybe it was a Republican president, but I don't think it was. I think it was a Democrat. But what a terrible thing. So Egypt basically is, they don't have enough water in the Nile. And they use that for a lot of things, including entertainment and travel and tourism and everything. I mean, I don't know. They got a big dam. I got to work that one out now, too. Armenia and Azerbaijan, President Putin told me, I cannot believe you settled that war. I've been trying to settle that war for 10 years. Armenia and Azerbaijan, they were fighting it for many, many years. And I ended up getting the heads of both countries in my office. The beautiful Oval Office, much more beautiful now than it ever was. And one sat at one side, one sat at the other. He said, I've been the head of Azerbaijan for 22 years, and for 22 years I've been killing his people. And the other gentlemen, and both very good guys, said, I've been here for 7 years, and for 7 years I've been killing his people. And they started over there, and within an hour they were next to each other, and by the time we ended, they were hugging each other, and it's been a great peace, Should have gotten the Nobel Prize for each war, but I don't say that. I saved millions and millions of people. And don't let anyone tell you that Norway doesn't control the shots, okay? It's in Norway. Norway controls the shots. They'll say, we have nothing to do with it. It's a joke. They've lost such prestige. That's why I have such respect for Maria doing what she did. She said, I don't deserve the Nobel Prize. He does. When she got it, they said, wow, that's amazing. I thought President Trump would get it. President Trump deserves it. He ended up 8 wars. How nice, right? It's a good woman. Got all 20 living hostages returned to their families, and the remains, they all came out. We got the 20 living hostages. We got the 28 hostages. They have 1 left that we think we know where it is. Amazing. Looked like we weren't going to get anywhere near that. Now they've gotten almost. And more importantly, we got many more, hundreds. We got them all. If we didn't do it, you wouldn't have had, most of those people would have been dead. I don't know if that's covered properly, but you know, the 20 is great. They were the last ones. I always said the last 20 are going to be hard, but we got them. We got the last 20, and we got close to 28 of the bodies of the dead. And to those parents, that was just as important as getting their son back alive. They were almost even more intent on they knew their son was dead. They wanted to get the body. I got him back. We just created the Board of Peace, which I think is going to be amazing. I wish the United Nations could do more. I wish we didn't need a Board of Peace, but the United Nations, and you know, with all the wars I settled, the United Nations never helped me on one war. I mean, I guess I'm not blaming them. I didn't call them to help, but I got, you know, the presidents and prime ministers together. We knocked heads. We got along, and they liked me. I liked them. Every single one of them nominated me for a Nobel Prize. Every one of the wars, among many other people, nominated me for a Nobel Prize. But Putin told me I cannot.
All right, right now you are watching live the president continuing to deliver remarks. The White House briefing this afternoon. Top left-hand corner, a student protest in Minnesota, over ICE operations. And here locally, a crash in Charlotte that is still being worked on. Maybe they're talking about reopening lanes by 4 o'clock, but we're keeping tabs on this. I-85 to the I-485 ramp, and that is definitely causing delays. We will continue to follow all 3 stories after this break on Live Impact News on WCNC+. At 2:51 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we have been continuing to follow President Trump's remarks, a one-year anniversary of his second inauguration from the White House briefing, as well as look at images from a student protest walkout out of school in Minnesota over ICE, and then locally a traffic crash on I-85 northbound to the outer loop on I-485 that remains closed until further notice.
China probably knows more accurately, but we have much smaller in terms of the number of people. We have a much more powerful military, but we have much smaller. I rebuilt the military during my first term, by the way. And while they gave away a lot to Afghanistan, the Taliban, which was just horrible seeing them, every year seeing them do that military down some dirty street is a disgrace. But while Biden gave a lot of it away, it's a tiny fraction compared to what we did. I rebuilt the military, and now we're continuing to build it. And bigger and better, we need it. Peace through strength. But we withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. So I remember we were paying $500 million. They were paying 37 or 39 million. And I said, how come? So I withdrew, and they called, we'll give you the same deal that they had. I said, well, it should be less than that, because if they're at 37 and you have 3 times, 4 times the number of people, even maybe 5 times, I don't know. So it should be less, but I didn't want to chisel around. And I thought about it. So I could have taken 500 million to 37, and everybody knew it. I chose not to do it because it was actually very popular when I got out, because they were terrible. And so I chose not to take that deal. First thing Biden did is go back into it. You know what he paid? More than 500 million. So I actually called them. I said, you know, you can buy it for less. You can make a deal at 37. There's no reason to pay 500. They didn't care. They paid more than 500. Did you know that? They paid more than 500 million. I made a deal at 37. I could have had 37. They were public about it. We'll give you the same deal that China has for 37. And they paid $500 million. That's the way you ruin a country. And it's the same attitude that, you know, you have on everything else with these people. They were terrible.
All right, we're going to try to get that picture back up, the feed there out of Washington, D.C., but wanted to let you know of some breaking news right now. We are learning that federal prosecutors have served 6 grand jury subpoenas to Minnesota officials as part of an investigation whether they obstructed or impeded federal law enforcement during an earlier immigration operation that happened last week. More on that this afternoon on WCNC Charlotte. In the meantime, let's get you back out to the president. The video is back up and running here on Live Impact News.
But he understands, and he's a good guy. We get along. But I said, Elon, we can't have all electric cars. We just can't do it. I like the electric cars. I like his car. But in particular, I like his car. But we can't do that because some people don't want an electric car by 2030. And to build the power stations all over the country would have cost $4 trillion. $4 trillion, that's more than any country has. If you got China, the United States, and everyone, you couldn't do it. And it would have taken years. And yet they were supposed to be switching over electric vehicle mandate. Some people don't like electric cars. Some people want hybrids. Some people want regular gasoline-powered cars. We have more gasoline than anybody. And now with Venezuela, we have 62% of the market when you include Venezuela. So I ended the Green New Scam, and I ended the insane electric vehicle mandate. Now you can buy a gasoline-powered car, a hybrid, and you can buy a electric vehicle. I mean, if you think, if you want electric, you can buy it. Make a good deal on them right now because they made a lot of them. Permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. That's having to do with the environment, so ridiculous. Cancel the EPA's absurd totally absurd tailpipe emission standard, which made you spend hundreds of thousands, for hundreds of thousands of cars. The cost numbers were incredible that the consumer has to pay. Imposed 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles and 100% tariff on Chinese cars, which don't come into the country because of tariffs. Only because of tariffs. We didn't have tariffs, you wouldn't have any car. We have now more car factories being built in the United States than ever before because of tariffs. If they take those tariffs away, China will eat our lunch. They'll take all of our car business. Now, there's another way of doing it, but it's more cumbersome, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to scare you, but it's much more cumbersome, not as good for national security as this. We have a perfect system right now. We're making a fortune. We've never been stronger, and I hope the Supreme Court does the right thing for our country, because if they don't, it's such a problem. It's just so, it would be so sad. We're doing so well because of tariffs. And the people that are heading up the lawsuit, like there's a guy named Leonard Leo, who's bad guy, and people that are very China-oriented and foreign car-oriented and foreign business-oriented, but in particular China, they're suing to get rid of tariffs because they don't want tariffs, like Coke. Coke has businesses outside of the United States. If you have them outside, you don't want tariffs. But because of tariffs, they treat us well. Without tariffs, they would treat us very badly, as you saw for many years. They respect us more now than they ever have respected us, by a lot. And revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating the automobile industry and destroying automobiles and the industry in the nation. I was with Bill Ford of Ford Motors. I was with all the people at General Motors the other day, and they are making more money and building more cars than they are doing so good. All because of tariffs and what I've done. And they're building their plants all in the United States. Reopened Anwar for drilling. That's a big deal. Launched a massive Alaskan pipeline project to export natural gas to Asia. We made a deal with South Korea and with Japan that gives us money, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. Signed executive orders to end Biden's war on coal. And I say clean, beautiful coal. I never say the word coal. This has to be preceded by the words clean, beautiful coal. And put miners back to work. The miners love Trump. I think I got 100% of their vote. We banned transgenders from the military. We don't want transgender in the military. Ordered reinstatement of patriots expelled from our military with full back pay. So we had some people that were terminated, and they're coming back into our military. Fired the woke boards of visitors at our military service academies. The boards of visitors were run by radical left, maybe communists, maybe not, but they were still heavily radical left, and they were bad for us. Signed an executive order to remove anti-American propaganda from federal museums and national parks. Required the federal employees to return to work in person or be fired. We don't want them sitting in their home on their bed working. We want them in an office that we're paying for in Washington, D.C. or wherever it may be. And we've largely taken care of that mess. That was crazy. I guarantee you they're out on the ball fields. I guarantee you they're out playing golf. And you can't run a country or a company that way. I think it's happening even so with countries and companies. But we had so many of our federal workers that wouldn't come into work. Signed an order banning all government censorship and restoring free speech. Made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders. This was not a tough one. Two genders. Can anybody guess what they are? Male and female. I think the Democrats know that too, but they refuse to admit it. Ban the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, and other chemical and surgical mutilation of children. Can you imagine saying this 15 years ago? That we banned the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, and other chemical and surgical mutilation of our children. You know, when I say it, I say, do I have to say that? I actually asked my people today, yes, sir, because people, that's where the country went. Banned men from playing in women's sports. Big Supreme Court case, and I mean, I can't believe it. Some of the justices were fighting hard for men to be able to play in women's sports. A couple of them. I can't imagine it, but I think anybody that rules that way should lose a lot of credibility. But we banned men from playing in women's sports. All you have to do is look at the records, look at weightlifting records, look at swimming records, look at track and field. It's not fair. It's very demeaning to women. Banned transgender ideology and critical race theory from our schools. Secured unprecedented settlements with Brown University, Columbia University, and many other colleges, including the University of Pennsylvania, where I went, the great old Wharton School of Finance. To restore fairness and merit, we're working with Harvard right now. They've been very anti-Semitic. Terrible what they've done. And we'll see what happens. I hear we have a deal, but who the hell knows with them? They have a lawyer that wants to show how hot he is. Ended taxpayer-funded student loan forgiveness for radical left and anti-American activists. Can you believe it? Began the process of abolishing the Federal Department of Education and returning education back to the states. And Linda McMahon is doing a fantastic job. Ended Joe Biden's weaponization of our government and removed his hand-picked radical left Marxist prosecutors from the Department of Justice, like deranged Jack Smith. He's a sick son of a bitch. They gave me the worst of the worst. And here I am. How did that happen? How did that happen? He's a sick guy, and Letitia James is sick, and Alvin Bragg is sick. They're sick people. And others. Fannie, you can't call Fannie. She doesn't like it. She wants to be called Fani. Fani Willis. I won. Can you imagine putting somebody through that? And then if I suggest that somebody may be guilty of a terrible crime, oh, he's weaponizing government. Trump is weaponizing government. It's terrible. Can you imagine? They say to me about weaponize, I don't weaponize anything. But what they did to me, nobody ever went through what I went through. And here I am in a place called the White House. It's a beautiful place. Who would have thought, right? Signed legislation to cut all taxpayer funding to woke and biased NPR and PBS. And they're sort of gone now, I guess. I heard they closed up. They were terrible. They were so unfair. They were so terrible. Officially reinstated Columbus Day. I like the name Columbus Day. The Italian people are very happy about it. Remember, when you go to the voting booths, I reinstated Columbus Day. That was an easy one. Christopher Columbus. Cut Social Security wait times by 50%, serve 65% more Social Security recipients by phone, and are on track to doubling the service and performance compared to the Biden administration. We're 2.5 to 3 times better and faster. Slash VA claims backlog to the lowest number ever recorded. Created Trump accounts starting with $1,000 for every newborn baby. This is something that's become so popular. And I give Mr. and Mrs. Michael Dell Computer, who put in $6.25 billion, started with nothing. And he actually invested all that money to give to kids so that when they grow up, they have an account that might be worth a lot of money. It'll be riding with the markets. And, you know, they can, at 20 years old, 21 years old, they could have $100,000. They could have a lot of money. That's going to be amazing. But I give a lot of credit to Mr. and Mrs. Michael Dell. Signed an AI executive order to ensure the United States dominates the future of artificial intelligence. So we're leading China. We're leading the whole world. We're producing more electricity than we ever have because I'm allowing every one of those plants to build their own electric facility. We're giving them very, very fast approvals, unlike Los Angeles with the fire. So the federal government, I want to give a lot of credit to Lee Zeldin. the hardest approval for the 20,000 houses or more that burned down in Los Angeles because they didn't have the water. They didn't allow the water to come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed the water into the Pacific Ocean. So we had no water there. No, he had. I would say open up the water. Open it up to the governor, to the mayor. They didn't want to do it. They wanted to protect a tiny little fish that's, I said, how can you have a fish when you don't have any water? It was just an excuse, I guess. But it's amazing. We took 20,000 houses, and Lee Zeldin, the toughest permit is from the federal government. Within 2 weeks, every single permit was given to the people to build their houses. Then you have the incompetent mayor of Los Angeles, he's neutral, who decided to go to Africa during the fire. So you have this incompetent mayor, and I had it out with her the night when I got, right after the fire, I went there. She said, we're working on it so that we can have everybody starting to build within 2 or 3 years. Remember that? I said, you mean 2 or 3 days? No, I mean 2 or 3 years. And the place went crazy. Well, they still haven't gotten their permits. But every federal permit, every single one has been given a year ago. And Lee Zeldin has done a great job. And he's done a great job in the approval of all these big plants and factories and all of the electricity that they're creating for themselves. I said to Zuckerberg, I said to all of them, I said to Jeff Bezos, I said to everybody. Mark Zuckerberg couldn't believe it. He said, where are we going to get all the electricity? Because you need double the electricity that the country currently makes just to fire up those big plants. I said, well, nobody can do that. So what we're going to do is let you make your own electricity. Nobody believed it. And I said, we're going to get you fast permits. So we get them within 2 weeks. And they're coming up with some of the most incredible electric plants you've ever seen. So each one of those massive buildings, AI or otherwise, is building their own electricity. They're building their own plant. And it's incredible. Many of them are under construction already. They're going to have, we're leading AI, and we're leading China by a lot. Established a MAHA presidential commission, banned many artificial food dyes, as you know, issued new vaccine recommendations, and created new real food pyramid. And Bobby and Dr. Oz have been incredible. Provided $12 billion in aid for American farmers. Just gave them $12 billion in aid because they got screwed by other nations. And the number of drug dealers have fallen every single month since I took office. Drug dealers are way down in the United States, and that's a small version of what's sitting right there. That's just a small version. We took a country that was dead, and it's the hottest country in the world right now, and that's after 1 year. So let's go. That's a lot of people. All right, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I have two questions for you. One, do you want your Board of Peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
And I wonder you invited Lula from Brazil to be part of the Board of Peace.
I did.
What role do you expect him to play, especially with Venezuela?
Yeah,
and another one, because the UN...
Are you from Brazil?
Yes. The EU and Mercosur just signed a trade agreement this weekend, which is going to be the biggest trade zone, free zone in the world. Right. At the moment, you are talking a lot about tariffs. What is your reaction to that? So, two questions, Lula.
Well, look, I just think this. I think we have trade like we've never had before. We're doing better in trade than we ever have before. We're not being ripped off by every country in the world like we were before. We're doing numbers that nobody's ever thought possible. We're the richest we ever were. It's because of tariffs and the proper use of tariffs, and we're also the most secure. as an example, Iceland, without tariffs, they wouldn't even be talking to us about it. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to work out quite well. Yeah, right behind.
Thank you, Mr. President. How would you characterize your relationship with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer right now? And have you spoken to them since your Truth Social post last
No, I
night?
haven't, but I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well with them.
You told Norway's prime minister.
Are you from Norway?
No.
You look like you would be from. She looks like she's from Norway. Go ahead.
You told Norway's prime minister that you not winning the Nobel Peace Prize made you feel less obligated to think purely of peace.
Well, I lost a lot of respect for Norway. And
But
I
would not
believe,
winning
and
that
I believe
prize
very
affect-
strongly that Norway controls the Nobel Prize. But you have to understand, I settled 8 wars. I've had every one of those wars, every participant wrote, I didn't ask them to do it. They sent in strong they make recommendations for that. But I settled 8 wars. No president's probably ever settled 1 war. I don't know, think of it. I did 8. The reason I do it is because it's easy for me to do. And I didn't do it for a Nobel Prize. I did it because I'm saving a lot of lives. I'm trying to settle the final one. I'm trying to do Russia-Ukraine. And when Russia's ready, Ukraine's not. When Ukraine's ready, Russia's not. But they're losing 25,000 people a month on average. And I'm trying to get that one done. But no, I feel that Norway has tremendous control over who gets the Nobel Prize, despite what they say.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Mr. President, Kevin Hassett has said that those $2,000 tariff rebate checks would be up to Congress to decide whether or not to disperse that. Do you agree with Kevin Hassett on that, or do you think you can do that unilaterally?
No, I don't think we would have to go the Congress route, but we'll find out. The reason we're even talking about it is that we have so much money coming in from tariffs that we'll be able to issue at least a $2,000 dividend and also pay down debt for the country. But we'd do a $2,000 dividend to the people of our country. Would probably set a limit of, income limit where it made sense. But we will be able to make.
Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. By the way, I'm Colin Mayfield here on WCNC Plus. We'll have more coverage for you for the next 45 minutes here inside the Impact Studio. We'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will continue to listen in on the president on the other side of this, but we do have a live interview guest that we want to bring on. Drag racing champion Doug Herbert. He does so many things across the country, but we're having him on today because of the Brakes Foundation and the organization that he founded, of course, and the announcement that was just made with Dale Earnhardt Jr., one of NASCAR's legends, of course. It's great to have you on, Mr. Herbert. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys having us on, and
thank you.
Talk about a really important issue.
Well, yeah, let's get it right into it. Talk a little bit about Brakes, about what we heard a little bit about from Mr. Earnhardt earlier today, and a little bit about what this program is incentivizing folks for. We know the roadways need to be safer, and I think this is going to help in doing so. Talk about that a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, Brakes is a safe driving program. We focus on safe and responsible driving, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been a friend of mine for many years, and for him to jump on board with Nationwide Insurance and come up with this program to reward these young drivers for doing a good job and being responsible drivers. It's a wonderful program, and it's neat how we can motivate our young adults to do better and make smarter decisions with with the help of a company like Nationwide. So we're happy to be involved and happy to be part of Dale's team here.
I love that. Talk a little bit about why you founded Brakes, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we've all been teenagers before and probably not made some of the best decisions ever. And my two teenage boys were driving to McDonald's on a Saturday morning back in 2008. My son John was driving too fast, was not being responsible driving in the car and going too fast, and lost control of the vehicle. Both him and his younger brother James, they were both in the car and we lost them both that day, and unfortunately right in Cornelius, less than a mile from our house. So my mission from that tragedy was to decide to try and do something to make sure another parent didn't get that call that I had, that their teenagers weren't going to be able to come home, and teaching these teenagers a little bit about being safe and responsible, and that's what we do at Brakes.
Mr. Herbert, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm so glad that you created something that is going to be a lasting impact, I think, in a lot of young people's lives, and using that tragedy to, I think, help people overall. So appreciate you doing that, because I know that probably was not easy. I'm a parent myself, so I can only imagine what an unimaginable loss. But again, here we are in 2026, and you're still utilizing that loss to help others. So a little bit more about Brakes. You guys have been around for a long time, and you guys have helped more than 160,000 individuals who have gone through your training course. So talk a little bit about what that course is and why it's so impactful, because you guys have helped a lot of people.
Yeah, it's been amazing, right? I started in 2008 to train my boys' friends, and we trained like 50 teenagers. Right now, it's snowballed to 160,000. It's amazing what we've been able to accomplish. Basically, the easiest way to explain what Brakes is maybe to say what Brakes is not. We're not a driver's ed program. We're teaching advanced car life-saving skills behind the wheel of a car. Car control, how to make good decisions in the car, how to avoid a skid, how to activate the anti-lock brakes, how they work, and how to utilize them to take advantage of the technology that's in the cars now. And even as parents, right, even with all of our experience for years of driving, the vehicles have changed. They don't used to be a horn button in the center of the steering wheel. Now it's an airbag that comes out at 200 miles an hour. They used to tell us to pump the brake. We don't do that anymore because we have anti-lock braking systems. So we try and we actually require the parents to come too, and we train them separately from the teenagers, because parents, we're not that cool. Teenagers don't really want to necessarily be with their parent learning these things, but we've had some really good luck. We work with the University of North Carolina, Dr. Paul Friday over there, and through a 5-year study found out that the teenagers that are coming through the program are actually over 64% less likely to be involved in a car crash. Wow. And I'll tell you, I'd be happy if it was 1%. So that we're able to make such a difference and impact on these teenagers and the way they're driving cars is absolutely incredible, and it's just great. And like I say, thankful to have Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his team jump on board and help us with this word getting out and coming up with this program to help reward these young drivers for doing a good job on the road. It's just incredible.
I love that. So last thing I have to ask about is, if people want to be involved in this is such a great program, as we've stated, and you've shown evidence of. How can people get involved with this if teenagers are out there who are going to be seeing this? Because we're going to run this tonight, and of course it'll be on WCNC Plus to live forever. So how should people get in contact with Brakes?
Oh, well, the easiest way is probably through our website, which is putonthebrakes.org. Putonthebrakes.org is a great resource. We've got information on there about upcoming classes that we have at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, other places around the Charlotte area, of course, nationwide as well. And that'd be a good place. I'm sure we have links on there that'll get them over to to get signed up for that app and earn some rewards. That'd be great too.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Herbert, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for telling your story. Thank you for again, blessing us with this amazing organization that has helped so many people and will continue to do so. So thanks again for your time.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Thanks for helping us get the word out, and we appreciate you guys.
No problem at all. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We'll come back on the other side. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go back to the president, who is speaking right now. In fact, taking questions from reporters on Greenland, talking about how far this may go. Let's listen in right now.
Where are you from?
I'm Palestinian American.
So with Iran, they were going to hang 837 people, and I let them be known that, and we let them know that if that happens, that will be a very bad day for them. And they decided not to do it. They didn't hang the people. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but supposedly they've taken that off the table. But they were going to, last week, they were going to hang on Thursday or Wednesday. They were going to hang, I think, 837 people, and they didn't hang anybody. So we're just going to have to see what happens with Iran. Is the military option off the table? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Trump.
Thank you, President
Go
Trump.
ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, I'll take your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Go ahead, right here.
Thank you, Mr. President. You promised during your second inaugural to always put America first. I'm curious, how would you winning the Nobel Peace Prize improve the lives of average, everyday Americans? Why is this prize so important?
It wouldn't improve the lives of any, but what improved the lives of people are people that are living. I saved probably tens of millions of lives in the wars. You know, if you add up the numbers, just if you look at any one of those wars, you're talking about millions of people. You multiply it times 8. But when you look at India and Pakistan, that could have been 10, 15, 20 million people. Could have been more than that. So I saved millions of people. So that, to me, is the big thing. What?
You suggested a moment ago that perhaps the reason why a positive story about the economy isn't getting through is because of, bad communications people. But are average Americans wrong to still feel high prices? And how much longer does the White House hope that they?
So I think a lot of people are listening to the fake news a little bit, and I'm not blaming anybody. I think I blame ourselves. I think we've done a much better job than we're able to promote. We're not promoting. We're doing a great job, and we're sort of letting the promotion take care of itself. One of the reasons I'm doing this news conference, I think it's important. We have taken a mess and made it really good. It's going to get even better. But if you look at prices from a year or a year and a half ago, you look at the Biden prices, they were way up through the sky. And, they use the word affordability. They just say affordability and they don't talk about it. They created the affordability problem, and we are solving it. We have solved a lot of it. Again, everybody agrees in this room, I think, gasoline prices have come per gallon way down. When that happens, everything else comes down, but they've come down way down. Many of the groceries have come way down. It's all happening, and it's happening strong. But if you go back a year and a half, 2 years, take a look at those prices and look at the prices now.
Mr. President of Venezuela, you made a condition.
Where are you from?
I'm from Spain.
Nice place.
Thank you. You made a condition that the political prisoners should be freed. It seems that they are not being as fast as they promised in the beginning. Would that be an issue for the current government?
They've agreed that they're going to let, I guess, most of them out. Depends on what they did, but they have released a lot of. Released a lot of political prisoners in Venezuela.
Mr. President, earlier on last year, you had mentioned, you had indicated that you wanted to take back the Panama Canal. I know we've heard a lot about Greenland. Is that still on the table?
I don't want to tell you that. Sort of. I must say, sort of. That's sort of. Okay, one more. Yes, blonde, blue. Yes, go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead with the blue, holding the computer.
If a consequence of your determination to take control of Greenland is the ultimate breakup of the NATO alliance, is that a price you're willing to pay?
You mean the breakup of it's very interesting. So I think something's going to happen that's going to be very good for everybody. Nobody's done more for NATO than I have, as I said before, in every way. Getting them to go up to 5% of GDP was something that nobody thought was possible, and pay. At 2% they weren't paying. At 5% they are paying. And they're buying a lot of things from us, and they're giving them, I guess, to Ukraine. That's up to them, but they're giving them to whoever they're giving them to, but they're buying a lot. I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important. How about it?
Thank you very much. First of all, last year you told me that you believe that the reason you won an election is because God put you in this place so that you could save the world. Looking back 1 year, do you feel like God is proud of the effort that you've put?
I do, actually. I think God is very proud of the job I've done. And that includes for religion. You know, we're protecting a lot of people that are being killed. Christians and Jewish people, and lots of people are being protected by me that wouldn't be protected by another type of president. No, I think a lot of people are very proud of the job we've done. We've had an amazing year. This has been one of the greatest years. Even some people that wouldn't necessarily love me instinctively, they're saying this was an incredible year. We've had an incredible year economically. Look at our border. Our border was a disaster. People pouring. It was an invasion into our country of a lot of very bad people. Good people too, but a lot of very bad people from prisons and drug dealers and gangs and horrible people, murderers, thousands and thousands of murderers allowed into our country. And we now have the strongest border of any country. There's probably not a country, I guess North Korea has a pretty strong border, by the way, but there's not a country in the world that has a border like we do. And we took it from the worst border. We had the worst border in the world. Now we have one of the strongest borders in the world. One more question.
President, you said you're confident something's going to get worked out in Greenland, but Greenlanders have made it clear they don't want to be part of the U.S.
Well,
what gives the U.S. the right to take away that self-determination?
When I speak to them, I'm sure they'll be thrilled.
Mr.
President, are you committed to keeping the U.S. in NATO?
I've had such a good relationship. I've made it so much better, so much stronger. It's so good now. NATO is so much stronger now. I don't agree with a lot of the things they've done, but that was done before I got there. I think NATO's been good. Sometimes it's overrated, sometimes it's not. But we have a strong NATO. When I came here, we had a weak NATO. We had a NATO at 2%, and they weren't paying. You had a nothing NATO. NATO's, whether you like it or not, it's only as good as we are. If NATO doesn't have us, NATO is not very strong.
Thank you.
Yes, no, behind you, please.
Thank you, President Trump.
Yes, go ahead.
Greatly appreciated, sir. We heard a long list of accomplishments from the last year. Could you cherry pick the top 3? And then looking forward, what are your 3 most important priorities in 2026?
So I think the building of a really powerful military has been a great achievement, and that would include the Venezuela thing, that would include the attack on Iran and the wiping out of the nuclear threat. I think that's been really amazing what we've done militarily. I think what we've done in business has been incredible. We have $18 trillion coming in. Plants are being built all over. Thousands of plants are being built all over the country. 18 trillion is a record. No country has ever come anywhere even close to that. I think that's a record. And I think that most favored nations for drugs is something that nobody thought they'd be able to get. Tariffs helped me there because the nations would have never gone along with it if I wasn't able to say, if you don't go along with it, we're going to put a 10 or 15 or 20% tariff on your nation. And they went along. And our drug prices are going to come down at numbers never even seen before, never even thought possible before. So those would be 3 things. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
How much did you pay Congratulations. How was the game?
All right, guys, we're going to take another 2-minute break, but of course we'll come back right here on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back, everyone. As you probably know, we are weather impact alert this week because of what is headed our way this weekend. I know that a lot of folks will probably be off on Saturday and Sunday, but still, people need to be aware. So you can download the WCNC Charlotte mobile app to get weather alerts, or just download the WCNC Plus app if you haven't done so already. And that's how you're listening to us right now. But let's get an update from our team. Majestic Storm has the update from our weather impact team right now.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. It is gorgeous today, sunny and mild, but we are preparing you for some big changes as we're heading towards a weekend. A winter storm system looks increasingly more likely across the south. Likely it's going to be a mix of snow, sleet, and eventually we could see some ice. So let's break down some things. The timing of it right now, still, it's very basic when we're looking at the timing because we're getting closer and closer to the event. That broad picture perspective, Saturday and into Sunday, that's what we're looking at when we're looking at the biggest impacts coming across our area. Slick roads, power outages, you need to be ready for both. Hopefully you don't have any place to be late in the day on Saturday and into Sunday because that's likely when we're going to see the worst of it. You need to now start preparing for this winter storm system that could be bringing some impacts over the next several days. Again, not until this weekend, but we're really starting to prepare you for that. Let's look at those trends over the next day or so. Right now, we've been keeping a close eye on those temperatures, and yes, it still looks the same and actually trending a little bit colder when we're looking at the upcoming temperatures for this weekend. We know we'll have the cold air. We also know that we'll have the moisture, and likely it's going to be a mix of snow, sleet, and ice that we'll be tracking and watching for you very carefully. We'll be watching this storm system right here. It's going to bring some big impacts across the south. You can see areas shaded in white. That's likely where we're going to see widespread snow across the south. But where we have this pink right here, that's where it's likely going to be a wintry mix and eventually some ice. And then green, of course, indicating where we could just get that rain staying outside of our area. It's important to know that as we're watching this weekend storm system, we're not just preparing you for rain, but we are really confident that we're going to see pockets of at least sleet and snow. But look at this. This is our future cast when we're looking at ice. This is Sunday morning at 7 o'clock. Darker purples, that's not good news. That's where we could see some higher accumulations when it comes to that icing. The lighter the color, the better, but bottom line, ice is never a good setup when we're talking about a winter storm system. Now, when we're looking at those icy impacts, let's talk about what they actually mean. A light glaze of ice, that simply means that we could see some ice on trees and power lines, still impactful, slick spots out on those sidewalks and even some roads. But notice, once we accumulate a little bit more, possibly a quarter of an inch, this is when it starts to become problematic. And we could have this as we're heading towards Saturday and into Sunday with that icing concern actually increasing. This could coat our windshields and our cars, dangerous travel, making it very, very difficult. And anything over a half of an inch of ice, that is going to be really problematic when it comes to tree damage and even possible power lines breaking and coming down. Saturday night and into Sunday, that's going to be our time frame for what this system could bring across the area. Again, starting out as rain, there's Friday, but notice on Saturday morning starts out quiet. Late in the day, we have snow first. This is right around midnight. Wintry mix to the south of us, and then eventually we could have that glazing of ice across the Charlotte metro area. Behind it, we have very cold temperatures, 37 degrees on Saturday, 26 for our high on Sunday, and then look at our lows. Anything that falls, this is going to be a problem because it's not just going to melt, it is going to stick around. Again, beautiful blue sunny skies today with temperatures climbing into the upper 40s. We'll see those temperatures warm into the upper 50s, low 60s through Thursday, but stay close to the WCNC weather team. We'll keep you up to date with the very latest as we continue to track this weekend winter storm.
Hey, everyone. We just got some breaking news, and we want to let you know. In fact, we're going to put up a mugshot here. Jeb will do this for me. This is Ryan Chase Price, who's 20 years old, from Lancaster, South Carolina. We just got this in from York County Sheriff's Office, who say that detectives are investigating a fatal shooting that he is involved with. This occurred during a house party Saturday night in Rock Hill, and we actually did tell you about this just days ago. But this happened on January 17th. That's when deputies responded to this shooting at 361 Old Friendship Road. And from this comment that was sent in to us, or the statement, I should say, upon arrival, it says deputies located a victim in the yard of the residence who had died from a gunshot wound. Several people who attended that party were interviewed at the scene. Now, based on witness statements and evidence recovered during the investigation, they arrested Price, who is in connection with this shooting. He's been charged with murder, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and being a minor in possession of alcohol. He is now in the York County Detention Center with no bond for these murder charges, and the investigation remains ongoing and active. We'll continue to follow the situation, as this just came in the last 20 minutes or so from the York County Sheriff's Office. We'll have more after this 2-minute break. All right, guys, we got some live news happening right now. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino is speaking in Minneapolis. Let's listen in right now.
Networks expand, and the community pays the price. Our neighbors, our citizens, our friends pay the price. Rather than confront that reality of which I've just spoken, leaders like Tim Walz or Mayor Fry have relied on heated rhetoric and accusations that distract from the facts. The facts are that federal agents are arresting murderers, rapists, child predators, cartel-connected criminals, and other individuals who pose a real danger to the people of Minneapolis. As these operations began and since, there have been constant attempts to interfere with lawful enforcement of our nation's Title VIII immigration laws here in Minneapolis. Officers have been violently and aggressively assaulted, objects have been thrown, and vehicles damaged. Despite that violence, enforcement has continued unabated. Our officers remain professional, focused, courteous, and committed to the mission. That mission, again, being Title VIII immigration enforcement. This effort reflects a coordinated federal approach. Agencies are working together under Title VIII authorities. Agencies like the United States Border Patrol Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and many other allied law enforcement agencies, FBI, DEA, ATF, and many others have came together under this operation, under this umbrella. We share intelligence and execute operations in a unified manner. That coordination is essential to effective enforcement and public safety. Since the start of this operation, we have arrested some of the most dangerous criminal offenders operating in Minnesota. In the entire state of Minnesota, we have arrested some of the most violent criminal offenders right here in this city. These are not minor violators or minor garden variety criminals. These are repeat offenders with serious criminal histories. Now, folks, before I came here today, I printed out a few individuals that I'd like to share with you. Individuals that were arrested since yesterday. These 3 individuals were arrested just since yesterday. Keep in mind now, these individuals were walking the streets of Minneapolis with impunity as of yesterday. We've got Hovai Kumaye, a criminal illegal alien from Laos, a registered sex offender, convicted of sex offense against a child, including fondling and failure to register as a sex offender. This individual was walking the streets of Minneapolis just yesterday. This individual right here. It's very interesting that I haven't seen this individual or many others like him reported on very much by the local news media or the state news media. That's interesting. But wait, let's don't quit there. No, you can't. Let's continue here. We've got Samuel Aravelo Hernandez, a criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, charged with rape and lewd or lascivious acts with a minor. Now, think about that for just a second. Rape, and then on top of that, lewd and lascivious acts with a minor. This individual was walking the streets of Minneapolis with impunity just yesterday. Let's don't quit there. Let's keep on there. We've got Annabelle Gomez, a criminal illegal alien from Honduras, previously arrested for criminal sexual conduct and domestic assault. Other convictions include disorderly conduct and driving under the influence of liquor. Walking the streets as of yesterday. These are just three that I decided to print out. There's a whole stack of them. There's a whole stack of these. As a matter of fact, when we look over the past year at the 10,000 that have been arrested here in Minneapolis and Minnesota, that stack is enormous. These are the kinds of individuals this operation focuses on. Individuals who escalate situations and endanger others. Again, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and Ma and Pa America. This is exactly why interior enforcement exists, to remove dangerous criminals from our communities, remove dangerous illegal alien criminals from our communities. It's also important, folks, to address a point that's often overlooked. Interior enforcement does not exist in isolation. It's not just about interior enforcement. It's a dichotomy here. It's interior enforcement and border enforcement. What happens in Minneapolis is directly connected at what happens at our borders. Interior enforcement and border security are intricately connected. For years, federal law enforcement was placed in a defensive posture, especially over those past 4 years. Agents were overwhelmed, processing massive numbers of illegal aliens coming into the country, often with limited vetting, minimal accountability, and few consequences. I think that's proven right here just by those three that I held up there. Time and resources that should have been dedicated to public safety were diverted to administrative processing, and criminal organizations exploited that environment. Over the past year, under the leadership of our President Donald J. Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, that dynamic has changed. It's changed radically. It's changed more than I've ever seen in my over 3 decades in law enforcement. Border enforcement has reached historic levels. I actually called back to my home sector in El Centro today. They had one apprehension over the past 24 hours. One along that 75-mile stretch of border in El Centro alone. Last week, there were several days where they had 0 border crossers in that sector. That's the same thing across all 20 Border Patrol sectors. Very few crossings. Illegal crossings have dropped to record lows. Catch and release has ended. Consequences have been restored. Again, consequences restored. Because the border is now secure, law enforcement can do its job more effectively. Agents are no longer tied up processing and releasing individuals into the interior, individuals that we just talked about. They can focus on who is coming into this country and, just as importantly, identifying and removing those who should not be here. And that shift matters. It allows for meaningful vetting, targeted enforcement, and a renewed focus on public safety over paperwork. Public safety over paperwork. Border security provides operational control, disrupts cartel pipelines, and prevents criminal flow from reaching American cities. It also allows law enforcement to focus, again, on removing individuals who slip through during years of failed policies and later committed serious crimes. What happens on the border doesn't stay on the border. Border enforcement and interior enforcement are two parts of the same mission. A secure border without interior enforcement leaves communities vulnerable. And interior enforcement without border control is unsustainable. Again, it's that dichotomous relationship. When both are aligned, the results are clear. Over the course of this administration, more than 10,000 criminal illegal aliens, as I said, have been apprehended here in Minneapolis over the past year. And in just the last 6 weeks alone, during this most current surge, 3,000 arrests of some of the most dangerous offenders operating in Minneapolis have occurred. 3,000. These are not technical violations, as I mentioned. These are individuals responsible for serious harm. Think about it for just a second, what the rape of a child actually entails. It seems as if that's glossed over by the media oftentimes. What does that entail, and what's that like? Think about that. Murderers, rapists, gang members, they're not the people we want in our community. This is what public safety looks like. When the law is enforced consistently and professionally, we will continue enforcing the law. We will continue making arrests, and we will continue working to keep Minneapolis safe. The mission continues at the border and in the interior, because that effective enforcement depends on both occurring at the same time. Let's make America safe again. Honor first. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. As Greg introduced, I am the Executive Associate Director for ICE Enforcement Removal Operations. Thank you for joining us. We announced the current status of Operation Metro Surge. As you know, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested over 10,000 illegal aliens in Minnesota since President Trump took office. Over the weekend and through yesterday's holiday, ICE arrested 113 illegal aliens in Minnesota. Some of the criminal aliens that were arrested, whose photos you see beside me on the monitor, include an illegal alien gang member from Laos with convictions for homicide and robbery, an illegal alien from Laos who's been convicted for sodomizing a 12-year-old girl and sexual assault, an illegal alien from the Marshall Islands who has 24 criminal convictions, including assault, domestic abuse, and theft. There's an illegal alien from Honduras convicted of 3 DUIs who has also been arrested for kidnapping, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and possession of a stolen firearm. An illegal alien from South Africa convicted of violating a restraining order and arrested for domestic violence, assault, meth possession, and DUI. We are currently also looking for 2 sexual predators who are at large in or around St. Paul right now. Lu Mao Ah, a criminal illegal alien from Laos who is wanted for sexually assaulting a child, rape, kidnapping, and domestic violence. And Kong Ming Bang, a criminal illegal alien from Laos who is wanted for sexual assault, gang activity, and simple assault. If you have any information about these two criminal illegal aliens or any other criminal illegal aliens, please call the ICE tip line at 866 DHS 2 ICE or visit the website at ice.gov to submit a tip. Since President Trump took office 1 year ago today, the state of Minnesota has released nearly 500 criminal aliens who were in police or state custody rather than turning them over to ICE for removal proceedings. Many of these criminals already have a final order of removal, which means an immigration judge has determined that they have no legal basis to remain in the United States. ICE currently has more than 1,360 immigration detainers on illegal aliens in Minnesota jails and prisons, and we are calling on Governor Walz and Mayor Fry to turn these criminal illegal aliens directly over to ICE to keep Minnesota residents in our community safe. If local officials, including those in the Twin Cities, don't want ICE to arrest criminal aliens that are at large in their communities, the best solution is to turn them over to us in a safe, controlled setting like a jail or prison, instead of releasing them back onto the street to victimize our neighborhoods, where your children go to school, where your parents live, and where you worship, shop, and spend time with your loved ones. The holiday weekend's arrests reflect ICE's commitment to public safety and responsible enforcement. When criminal illegal aliens threaten the Twin Cities or any other city in America, we act decisively to remove them from the community in a controlled and lawful manner. Our goal is simple. We're here to protect the American communities from people like the ones you see here on the monitor. Thank you.
For Commander Babino, some of us in this room, this is A.C. Thompson with PBS Frontline, have followed you from city to city and documented your activities. How is what you're dealing with here different than what we've seen in other places?
Well, Mr. Thompson, thanks for the question. We've been in many cities, as you know. We've been in Los Angeles, Chicago, Charlotte, New Orleans, and now, obviously, Minneapolis. So what we've seen that's a bit different here is the organization of some of the groups. The groups are a bit better organized. They've got some excellent communications, and that coupled with a very poor response from the mayor and the governor, those two things coupled together make that a difficult operating environment at times. And the reason I say that is I just came from Operation Catahoula Crunch there in Louisiana, in which state and locals, including the governor, the mayors, the police chief, worked in close concert for us to do what my colleague here, Marcos Charles, said, and that's remove violent offenders.
All right, folks, if you'd like to follow along and listen to this, we will have this on a secondary channel for you. Of course, we'll have WCNC Charlotte News at 4 coming up very soon. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tonight.
Here, I've lost count. I've already lost count of how many. I believe we had a vehicle ramming today. We had one yesterday in which two illegal aliens decided that it would be a good idea to ram Border Patrol agents and then take off. And in doing so, they hit a civilian vehicle as well. Those two were apprehended. So it's that collusion and corruption between elected officials and these anarchists that are intent on creating violence for law enforcement. You know, I see a lot of this that mirrors what happened in 2020 right here in this city when they decided to try to burn the city down. It's that same type of rhetoric, that same type of support by those elected officials. So that's very different than what I just witnessed in Louisiana, the place that I just came from.
Senator Babino, question for you. I'm with Border Hawk.
It's hard to get coffee in the Twin Cities without seeing signs of ICE can't enter, but everyone else can, or restaurants or supermarkets. Based on everything you shared today, what is your message to these businesses, these organizations that are obviously trying to push out ICE and your operation?
Sure. And this goes to anyone, not just those businesses and organizations. Don't fall victim. Don't fall victim to that heated rhetoric and those lies that are often spouted by, say, a Mayor Fry. Mayor Fry actually told his police force to fight federal agents in the city. And you should have even seen the look on O'Brien's face, Chief O'Brien. His eyebrows actually raised at that one. So don't fall victim to that. Our Border Patrol agents, our ICE officers, our parents, they're citizens. They enjoy the rule of law just like everyone else. So to deny them a cup of coffee or lawful commerce seems to be absolutely opposite of what we would expect in a lawful, orderly society. Did we like what happened with the church there a couple of days ago when individuals came in and disrupted almost violently a church service? Absolutely not. Same thing. We should treat each other with respect, dignity. And that is why we are here in this city as we take those violent criminals off the streets. That's respect and dignity.
This is for you as well, Commander Pedino. At a press conference today, we heard from several local police chiefs who said that they support ICE, but that certain ICE tactics are making their jobs, keeping their own communities safe, that much harder. What's your response?
I would say that those tactics are born of necessity. What we do is legal, ethical, and moral. Everything we do every day is legal, ethical, moral, well-grounded in law. So I would impugn upon those police chiefs and anyone else, elected representatives, and you have to remember, many of these police chiefs do work for the Mayor Frys of the world, that turn over those illegal aliens, those criminal illegal aliens. Let me hold these up again, so it's just so we don't forget this, because it seems like it always gets forgotten. Rape, lewd and lascivious acts against a child. So Mayor Fry is having police chiefs worry about tactics while we're after these type of people. I think that they're asking the wrong questions and their priorities are misplaced. Let's work. Wait, I'm not done yet. Let's work together. And we've said this from the very beginning. We want to work together with local police chiefs and the rank and file. And believe it or not, folks, we work very well together with the rank and file we have in every single city we've been to, whether that's Los Angeles, Chicago. A lot of rank and file gave us a lot of good information on a lot of good criminals, a lot of bad criminals there in Chicago. And then we proved it again in New Orleans. Let's work together to take individuals like this off the street. Had we worked together from the very beginning, perhaps we wouldn't be in the city by the thousands conducting operations that those police chiefs, those mayors, and those elected representatives refuse to partake in.
If I could just follow up, though, real quick. If I don't think the argument from a lot of people, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't want criminals who are alleged to do these things out of these communities. I mean, no one wants that. I think where a lot of the criticism comes in is within the tactics that you see ICE and others engaging in, that it's ordinary citizens who are not sex offenders or rapists getting swept up in it. So what do you say to that?
Sure. Where you're talking about these ordinary citizens, mom, pa, America, that get swept up in what I see. I'm out on the streets just as Marcos Charles here is. We're on the streets with our troops almost every day. And what we see when folks get swept up, as you say, oftentimes it's those agitators, those rioters, and now I call them anarchists, that actually cause Mom, Pa, America to sometimes be near, at, or involved in a very tense situation when they shouldn't even be. There's no need for that violence that we see against law enforcement. And again, it seems as the only people that are really dialing down that rhetoric is the federal law enforcement entities that just want to conduct legal, ethical, and lawful law enforcement missions in this city to take out those violent criminals, bad people, and bad things. Thank you.
News Nation.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
What is the current status of the officer that was involved in the deadly shooting? Is he on administrative leave? And then the second question,
isolated to a small group of agents that are causing issues?
So the officer that was involved in the shooting last week or 2 weeks ago now, he's recovering. He's at home recovering.
Is he on administrative leave or is he still involved in the operation?
Right now he's at home recovering. Leave it at that.
And as far as the response to local police saying that it's isolated to a small group of your agents or officers that are causing issues?
So our officers that are out there, CBP, Border Patrol, DOJ partners that are out there, ICE, ERO, HSI, everybody that's out there is a professional. They're out there doing their job. They're everyday people doing a very hard job trying to enforce the immigration laws in an environment where local and state politicians have been spreading rhetoric that dehumanizes these officers and agents.
We got time for one more.
Commander Bambino, Border Patrol with the Daily Caller. Earlier today, Brooklyn Park Police Chief says that his department is receiving endless of calls from American citizens saying that their civil rights are being violated by federal agents. And the police chief also went on to say that some of his off-duty officers are also being asked for their immigration status, and one officer was boxing. That's according to the police chief. I just wondered if you had a response for the Brooklyn Park police chief.
Sure. Again, our Border Patrol agents, ICE officers, and those allied federal law enforcement agencies are out there conducting Title VIII immigration, the Title VIII immigration mission. And I'll tell you, when you have a mayor and a police chief, O'Hara, that say call 911 when ICE or Border Patrol's in the neighborhood, and then they wonder why the 911 system is overwhelmed with superfluous calls with superfluous calls for assistance when that is not true. So we're going to continue to be out in the community, and we're going to continue to conduct that mission, that legal, lawful Title VIII mission. And again, I've been out with my Border Patrol agents. Marcos is out constantly with his troops, and what I see out there is a very professional, prudent, and thoughtful law enforcement action. And if somebody needs to use the 911 system, then do it. But let's don't encourage anarchists to utilize a 911 system that hurts other Americans that may need to use that system. A law enforcement professional should know that.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Russ. Are stopping people. How much longer? How long are you going to be here?
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Sir, you talk about. Why don't you answer that question, sir? Sir, why don't you answer that question? You're not just going to get to call on whoever you want.